Welcome to a meeting of your Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. Representing District 1, Harry Cohen. Representing District 2, Ken Hagan. Representing District 3, Gwen Myers. Representing District 4, Michael Owen. Representing District 5, Donna Cameron Cepeda. Representing District 6, Pat Kemp. Representing District 7, Joshua Wostel. The County Administrator is Bonnie Wise. The County Attorney is Christine Beck. Time is set aside at the beginning of each meeting for citizens to speak on any issue. So we have time for everyone. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Today's meeting is brought to you with closed captioning by Hillsborough Television.
Good morning and welcome to the February 7, 2024 regularly scheduled board meeting of the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. Would everyone please rise for the pledge and invocation given by our chaplain, Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with thanksgiving and praise. You're worthy to be praised. And this morning, we lift up the family of Joe Chalura, who passed away on Saturday, February the 3rd. He was a former county commissioner, a public servant that did so many great things while he was here. He championed the neighborhood Bill of Rights and did so many things to help establish the Hillsborough County Economic Development Department and was instrumental in developing the community investment tax. We pray for his family. We pray for the peace of God that passes all understanding to garrison and mount guard over their hearts during this time. We also pray for the January retirees of Hillsborough County from the Public Utilities Department, Mac Luton, Fire Rescue Department, James Bacon and Richard Rigdon, and from Development Services Department, David Anthony. We thank you for their life of many years of serving Hillsborough County people, and we're so grateful for their years of service, and we pray for their long and healthy life full of love, peace, and joy and happiness. In your holy name, and we pray for this meeting here this morning, that you bless this meeting in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner. This morning we have one special proclamation that'll be presented by Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would the following individuals from Riverside Recovery of Tampa please join me at the podium? Kirk Kirkpatrick, Chief Executive Officer and co-founder. Elizabeth Stockton, Chief Administrative Officer and co-founder. Christian Signano, Vice President of Client Care. Jotham Fade, Director of Marketing and Admissions, and Samantha Alberry, Vice President of Operational Compliance. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us. The idea of Riverside Recovery was born in 2015 when its co-founders were having a conversation about what the perfect treatment center would look like. For very personal reasons, they knew exactly what they did and did not want in a treatment center. Their goal was to create a diverse treatment center that offered an elevated experience while treating their clients with compassion and empathy. To say they have succeeded is an understatement. Riverside Recovery of Tampa opened its doors in the summer of 2017 and has been serving their clients 24/7, 365 days a year since then. Your new life starts here is not just a slogan at Riverside Recovery of Tampa. The amazing professionals who are with us today and their devoted staff live and experience this every day while helping people overcome substance abuse, addiction, and other issues. It is my pleasure to present the following commendation. And it reads, the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners is pleased to recognize Riverside Recovery of Tampa for enabling people to return to the life they love by offering a full continuum of care for those suffering from addiction and co-occurring mental health disorders. Centrally located along the Hillsborough River near downtown and is easily accessible from Tampa International Airport, Riverside Recovery of Tampa provides medical detox, residential, day and night treatment, intensive outpatient services, and outpatient therapy, utilizing the most effective evidence-based treatment options combined with experiential therapies. This premier center creates programs that help clients gain insight into their addiction and create real change in their lives. The center's serene, soothing environment enables clients to begin the healing process peacefully in every aspect of the building, from the view of the river to the specific lighting to the art that hangs on the walls, was carefully chosen to encourage recovery and create the best possible environment for clients, partnering with the Community Care Network through the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the 13th Judicial Circuit's Veteran Treatment Court. Riverside Recovery of Tampa has been able to help more veterans than ever before, an especially noteworthy achievement. The Board of County Commissioners of Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby commend Riverside Recovery of Tampa for its comprehensive and deeply personal services to the community and applauds its steadfast mission to get back the life you love, which has been proven to be a phenomenal success. Awarded this 7th day of February, 2024. Mr. Kirkpatrick, congratulations to you and your wonderful team, and thank you for everything that you do. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so much. Look at that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Cepeda, and esteemed commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here. It's an honor. It's really a team. It's amazing what you can accomplish when nobody cares who gets the credit. And we just want to make our community a better place. And we always talk about, we want the client to become the best version of themselves and, discover who they really are without the drugs and alcohol. And it's something that we love doing. It's a passion. I suggest do not get into it if you do not have a passion for it, because you need a lot of patience and a lot of love and understanding. But thank you so much, and we're just happy to be part of this community, and thank you for everyone's service and for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to take some pictures, please? When the team
And
comes
one
back
thing,
with photos?
Commissioner Cameron Cepeda, Commissioner, I want to first of all thank you for bringing this forward. Kirk, it's great to see you again. I know it's been a few years. I think you said it. You mentioned phenomenal success, and I think that's an understatement. It's a wonderful facility. They do incredible work. I had the opportunity years ago to tour the facility and speak to my fellow Gator here, Kirk Kirkpatrick, and where he educated me on a lot of the challenges faced with those with addiction and mental health challenges. And you certainly opened my eye, and I appreciate that. And I'm pleased to see that you guys are doing such a great job. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you, Commissioner. Bonnie, you want to review the changes to the agenda?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. We have a few items of revisions to the agenda. These are just the times. Item G2 will now be heard at 10:15. This is to receive a report regarding the 10-year summary of county funding for the University Area CDC. This is related to item B3. And then item B3 will also be heard at 10:15, related to item G2, is to approve an agreement between Hillsborough County and the University Area CDC for the period of October 1, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. And then item B4 will now be heard at 10:45. This is to approve a new board policy entitled Nonprofit Funding Guidelines. We have one item that has been removed from consent for discussion or questions by Commissioner Westall. It's item A8. This is to approve a contract for sale of purchase of real property in the amount of $1,252,500 with the Saffold Estates to acquire 49.67 acres, more or less, of property located in the Upper Little Manatee River Preserve through the J&K Platt Environmental Lands Acquisition and Protection Program. We have several items for time certain. The first one is item G1 at 9:45. This is related to items B1 and D1. This is to receive a report on the Consolidated Impact Fee Assessment Program. Then item D1 at 10 o'clock, related to items B1 and G1, is item D1. It is to hold a public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending the Consolidated Impact Fee Assessment Program ordinance to remove text relating to affordable housing relief from impact fees. And then item B1, also at 10 a.m., which is related to items D1 and G1, is item B1. This is to rescind the board policy relating to affordable housing relief from mobility fees. Then item B2 at 10 o'clock is to direct staff to draft an amendment to the Land Development Code requiring written authorization from rail line owners for development seeking private railroad crossing, including agritourism activities, for inclusion in the Land Development Code amendments. And then item G2, which is related to item B3 at 10:15. This is to receive a report regarding the 10-year summary of county funding for the University Area Community Development Corporation. And then item B3, related to item G2 at 10:15, is to approve an agreement between Hillsborough County and the University Area Community Development Corporation in the amount not to exceed $750,000 during the term for overall operations and the provisions of services to the University Area Community residents. And then item B4 at 10:45 is to approve a new board policy entitled Nonprofit Funding Guidelines. 11:45 is a recess for lunch. Those are the changes to the agenda.
Can we have a motion to approve the changes?
Second.
Motion, Commissioner Meyer, second Commissioner Kemp. Please record your vote on changes.
Check 1, 2.
Commissioner Westall? Motion carried 7-0.
All right, the board will go on the public comment portion of the agenda. The board welcomes comments from citizens about any issue or concerns. Your opinions are valued in terms of providing valuable input to board members. However, as requested at the same time, when you address the board, that comments are not directed personally against the commissioner or staff, but rather the issues. We've set aside 45 minutes for public comment this morning. The chair will call on speakers by name on the way the requests to speak have been received. When addressing the board, please state your name and speak clearly in the microphone. Each person will be given 3 minutes. First 3 speakers this morning, Dr. Sarah Combs, David Coleman, and then Leon Page. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, county staff, and University Area CDC supporters and nonprofits in the room this morning. My name is Sarah Combs, and I'm the CEO of University Area CDC, and I just want to thank you all so much for your partnership and your support over the past 25 years. I'm here to speak on several agenda items, the first being B1. To build affordable housing, it really does take a creative capital stack, and one of the initiatives and incentives that we have is the county reducing or eliminating mobility fees for affordable housing projects. To vote in favor of rescinding this policy would be taking a step backwards when affordable housing is needed most. I'm also here to speak on behalf of Agenda Item B3. I'm asking you to approve University Area CDC's Services and Programs Contract, which is currently in the approved county budget. University Area CDC has been serving the programs on this since October 1st. Through this contract last year, nearly 8,600 individuals were served, equating to about $87 per person. I'm also here to speak on Agenda Item G2, UACDC's 10-year summary of county funding. In this report, which we'll be presenting shortly, you will learn of Hillsborough County's partnership and commitment to the university area community. This commitment falls under 4 categories: affordable housing, economic development, parks and recreation, social services. Over the span of a decade, the county has invested $16.8 million of resources, resulting in the following breakdown. $5.3 million over 10 years for operation and management of the University Area Community Center, owned by Hillsborough County, a 50,000 square foot facility on 25 acres, which includes a park annex, basketball courts, pavilion, and bandshell, where over 10,000 customers come through the county building operated by UACDC each year for programs and services. $9 million over 10 years for programs and services which address Hillsborough County's core services: case management, workforce, health and wellness, youth programs, and affordable housing. $2 million in 10 years for capital projects benefiting Hillsborough County's properties. University Area CDC has been operating and managing the University Area Community Center for 25 years since it was built, and has been committed in partnership with the county to improve the area formerly known as Suitcase City. The community center is our home, and we have built trust with our community, which hasn't been easy. If you ask our community, they will tell you that UACDC is their community quarterback, and that we're working with over 40 partners through our neighborhood transformation strategy, a holistic approach to community development to improve our community. And it's working thanks to your investment. I'm here to advocate for the continuation of these vital services. I urge you to consider the long-term effects and the positive outcomes that our partnership with the county brings to the university area. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Combs. David Coleman, followed by Leon Page and Letitia Haley Brown. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dave Coleman. I was here last in December and I spoke against the gotcha moments my board seems to wrap itself in. Within minutes, public comment, a loud misogynistic call of liar was heard across the room. No lie was detected. Speaking of the room, Sarasota and Pinellas have theirs designed differently. The board sits at the same level as the public, always reminding them that's who they serve. I will be glad to help on demo day if needed. So many residents struggling in Hillsborough, 10% live in poverty, yet you gleefully raise our trash bill $85 and double our water bill over time, all while holding tightly to your $2.3 billion in what I have learned is called fluid money. It funds ELAP and keeps our AAA rating. The fact is the city rating dropped to AA, and that had no bad effect. We could easily have funded HOPE out of the $2,300 million, yet it just sits. Please use ELAP money and purchase the claw at USF. The BOCC Affordable Housing meeting told me 2 days ago I was wrong about homelessness, that Hillsborough is doing a great job, that our homeless choose to live that way. Excuses were made about our 4,000 kids with no permanent address in our schools, that we have only 1,500 on the street. Channel 8 said yesterday morning that it was 2,000. I did invite members to the vigil for the 110 that died on our streets at the portico. No elected showed up. You can read about that in the Times this morning. I asked about the $183 million on this year's budget summary for housing, and no one could tell me. I spent Christmas getting coats for 2 moms and 6 kids living in 2 hotel rooms for the past year. With the help of another, the kids got food, clothes, and a couple of toys. No one chooses to live that way. Also, I can't find the $1 million or so in flag money you hand out to your favorite voters. I would really like a list of each of your slush funds to be published by the end of the day. There is talk about removing waiver for low-income folks on impact fees. How are we going to get missing middle and new family starter homes if we don't keep funding things like that? And Tallahassee is passing a bill to restrict you all to 12 years, yet some of you want 26 years. No stadium is coming. Seriously, 26 years? County meetings continue to be non-transparent and confusing despite the new calendar and the $9 million in tech and communication money. There is no reason meetings in this building cannot be in person as well as virtual and also recorded. Use your phone and screen record them. Send me $100 million for that life hack. Deny SU 23-0498 on the 13th. And A40 is $100,000 for a Christian recovery. It should be benign, not Christian,
Thank you, Mr.
although I'm
Coleman.
Christian. Thank you for your time.
Next three speakers, Leon Page, Letitia Haley Brown, and Eleanor Saunders.
Check 1, 2, check 1, 2.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, commissioners, county staff, and university area community supporters. My name is Leon Page, and I'm here to speak on item G2 and B3. I am a retired lieutenant with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office for 32 years, and I personally observed some of the positive impacts that university area communities has had. UACDC has had a first hand in that support, and I just want to shed a little light on some of those things. During that 25 years, your generous support and partnership investment has enabled UACDC to spearhead initiatives that have significantly transformed the university community, improving the area and people's lives. First and foremost, crime reduction, which is paramount in any area. Crime reduction, we work hand in hand at university area communities with the Sheriff's Office to reduce crime. Health and wellness initiatives have seen remarkable strides through UACDC promoting a holistic approach to community development. From fitness programs to health education services, UACD has been instrumental in empowering residents to lead healthier lives. Affordable housing remains a cornerstone of university community stability. Through UACDC's efforts, we have witnessed the creation of affordable housing options, including both rental ownership possibilities, helping families to avoid the burden and cost of high housing. Through your support, UACD has partnered with Hillsborough County to invest in critical infrastructure projects. Infrastructure improvements have not only created a safer environment, but also enhanced the aesthetic appeal of neighborhoods, as well as increased accessibility and connectivity. Workforce development initiatives have provided residents with tools and skills necessary to access job opportunities. My focusing on education, training, and job placement, UACDC is empowering residents to break the cycle of poverty and contribute meaningfully to our local economy. Your youth programming remains close to my heart, having spent decades working with youth while I was in law enforcement. Through after-school programs, mentorship initiatives, and recreation activities, UACDC is molding the future of leaders of our community, ensuring that they have support and resources needed to thrive. Finally, residents engaged has been a driving force behind these successes. UACDC has fostered a sense of community, pride, and involvement, encouraging residents to take an active role in shaping the future of our communities, and the community has positively responded. In closing, I express my gratitude to the County Commission for your ongoing investments and support over these past 25 years. I urge you to continue supporting initiatives that uplift the university community area, for in doing so, you invest not only in our present, but also in a brighter future.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Letitia Haley Brown, followed by Illinois Saunders, and then Humera Abzal. Good morning.
Good morning, Board of County Commissioners, university staff, and supporters. My name is Letitia Haley Brown, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the University Area CDC. I would like to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to the Board of County Commissioners for their unwavering support towards the University Area CDC. It is because of your dedication and commitment that we have been able to make significant transformations in the university area. Our relationship with the residents, partners, and a variety of community members has been vital in achieving our goals. Together, we have been able to create a thriving and inclusive community. It is through collaboration and cooperation that we have been able to bring about positive change and improve the lives of the residents. I would also like to extend a special thank you to Gwen Myers for her exceptional support to the community. Her dedication and passions have been instrumental in driving our initiatives forward. We are truly grateful for her leadership and advocacy. As the newly appointed Chief Operating Officer of the University Area CDC, I'm excited about the opportunities that lie ahead. I'm confident that this year will bring even greater accomplishments as we continue our partnership and serving the community. Together, we can make a lasting impact and create a brighter future for all. Thank you once again to the Board of County Commissioners and to all of those who have supported us along the incredible journey. Your belief in our work has been invaluable, and we are honored to have your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Illinois Saunders, followed by Humera Abzal, and then Herbert Belcher. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Eleanor Saunders. I get to be the Executive Director of the Emergency Care Help Organization, better known as ECHO. We serve the 17 zip codes of unincorporated Hillsborough, which means most of you represent some of our same neighbors. I want to especially say thank you to Commissioner Kemp for coming out to our Riverview Resource Center and spending a phenomenal afternoon with me. Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Myers, for coming out and doing your town halls. Thank you for coming to our ribbon cutting. Thank you so much for showing up for us. I want to thank Commissioner Owen for your future tour that you're going to complete. And I'd like to thank ahead of time all of you. I'd love to invite every single one of you to come and see the phenomenal impact that's being made in our part of the county. But I want to speak to you this morning about the nonprofit funding initiative, especially point number 5, where the language is used preclude and not include any new nonprofit organization. I'm incredibly proud to say that ECHO has never had to come to you and ask for money. We have 6 streams of revenue. The majority of our support comes from our community. I'm really, really proud of that. But we are growing by leaps and bounds. 6 years ago, we served 10,000 local residents. This past fiscal year, we served 30,000 local residents. Last year, 8% of those we served identified as homeless. Just this last month, 25% of all we served identified as homeless. The need is great, and we are in a position where we need your help. And when you use language like preclude, you're talking about nonprofits just like ECHO, who we haven't needed your help in the past, but we're gonna need your help in the future. We're seeing families like Russ, single father, living in the car, 6-year-old son, 9-year-old daughter, 12-year-old daughter, came to ECHO, found emergency food and clothing, connected with an advocate, now is living in affordable housing, met with one of our job coaches, now is gainfully employed, just qualified for Habitat for Humanity yesterday. Our staff cannot wait to help them with the sweat equity hours. That's the kind of impact that's helping our neighbors every single day at our 2 resource centers, one located in Brandon, one located in Riverview. Please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because a lot of these smaller nonprofits have grown and they're going to need your support in the future. Thank you. Once again, my name is Eleanor and I get to be the Executive Director of ECHO.
Thank you. Humera Abzal, followed by Herbert Belcher, and then Jason Marlowe, which I believe is virtual. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Humera Abzal. I am here on item G1, Consolidated Fee Impact Assessment Program. On Monday night, I attended a homeless memorial at the Portico in downtown Tampa. At least 110 people in our county died last year without a home. I would read their names, but it'd take way more than 3 minutes. I have copies of the program for all of you, which I'll leave in a moment. You can also read the article on the front page of today's paper by Olivia George. These were real people from our community. They were human beings who deserved the dignity of a home, of shelter, of a safe and welcoming place to lay their head every night. These were only the people we know about. There were certainly more. These are their names. Hillsborough County is in a housing emergency that was created by decades of bad policies. Local renters and homeowners at all but the highest income levels are being negatively impacted by the shortage of housing that people can actually afford. Instead of working to make more affordable housing available, this body seems intent on undermining those efforts from every possible angle. The Impact Fee Relief Program for Affordable Housing projects dates back to 1992. I cannot comprehend the reasoning behind eliminating this beneficial program right now when we are in the middle of an affordable housing crisis that has no end in sight. Why now? Since you open every meeting with a prayer, I'm going to make a connection here. Why do you bother with the opening prayer if you're not going to heed the message of the religious teaching that it invokes? If you're going to bring religion into county commission meetings, you should actually try to implement some of the religious values and principles in your decision making. Everyone in Hillsborough County deserves decent, affordable housing. Shelter is not a luxury. It is essential to the development and sustenance of healthy, productive communities. All people, regardless of income, deserve the right to safe and affordable housing. Everyone. The housing crisis also negatively impacts Hillsborough County's economy. People who are overburdened by housing costs or who can't find any housing at all do not have money left to spend at local businesses or to invest in their futures or their children's futures, and are not able to meet their full potential as part of our community. And where do you think the Hillsborough County businesses are going to get employees if people become economic refugees and move? Not taking action to help end the housing crisis is a policy choice. It is a choice. Taking action to undermine good housing-related policies is also a policy choice. We are watching the choices you make. Start choosing to help people's lives better, not worse. Keep the impact fee relief program for housing in place.
Thank you, ma'am. Herbert Belcher. Mr. Belcher here? Okay, if not, Jason Marlowe, I believe is virtual. Is Jason on the phone?
I am here.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Board of County Commissioners. Good morning. I am here today to voice my sincere opposition to Agenda Item B4. All too often, from both sides of the aisle, we hear a very common refrain that, quote, government cannot do everything, end quote. And this is true. Government alone cannot do everything. It is precisely for these reasons that municipal support of outside entities, particularly nonprofits, that are doing positive work in the community is of such paramount importance. What this amendment to policy would do is specifically undermine our county's capacity to service and uplift its citizens in the nooks and crannies that government too often fails to reach. While I very much appreciate sound stewardship of our tax dollars, there are most certainly ways to do that without potentially taking food out of the hands of the hungry or clothes off the backs of those in the cold. Make no mistake, there is no scenario in which we can make a meaningful dent in our county's myriad of issues by removing the small amount of nonprofit support this county offers in a $9.92 billion budget. I would wholly encourage the Commission to either reject or at minimum revise the language of B4. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mr. Marlowe. Okay, Gil Martinez in person, followed by Teresa Alvarado and a Vanessa Josie.
Good morning, Commissioners. Gil Martinez on behalf of the Waimama Community Development Corporation. I am here to speak on behalf of item A8. On behalf of the Waimama CDC and our Planning Advisory Committee, I am here to speak in support of investing in ELAP for environmental preservation within our county. As stewards of our land and resources, we must prioritize initiatives aimed at safeguarding our environment for current and future generations. We urge the County Commission to prioritize environmental preservation efforts to allocate resources accordingly. By doing so, we can make a meaningful stride towards creating a healthier, more resilient, and more sustainable community for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Teresa Alvarado, virtual. Is Teresa on the phone?
Yes, good morning. I'm here.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in today's meeting. As you say, my name is Teresa Alvarado. I've been a resident of Hillsborough County for over 30 years. I've been working in the local community for over 20 years, so I've seen our county grow and change drastically. I've been with Florida Home Partnership is a nonprofit organization and builder. I worked for them for the past 18 years. I originally started as a loan specialist, meaning I was pre-qualifying and helping low-income families find a way to find an affordable home. I am currently the loan manager at Florida Home Partnership still, and it is very evident that things have changed for affordable housing. Everybody knows we have a crisis on affordable homes, and it's not so affordable anymore. Today, I want to speak to you as a local community member that benefits from affordable housing. Excuse me. But I also want to speak on behalf of our low-income home buyers who have the dream of owning a home, but they can't afford it. And I get emotional because it is personal. It is our community. It's our family. It's our friends. It's our neighbors, our neighborhood. In 2005, I was able to buy a home, my first home, when I thought I wasn't able to do that because I was part of the low-income family bracket. I was under 80% of the area median income. I applied for a program specifically for first-time home buyers with low income. Florida Home Partnership back then was called Homes for Hillsborough. And as I mentioned before, they're a nonprofit builder. And thanks for that organization, I was able to buy my home, utilizing the USDA self-help housing program. And it wasn't just Florida Home Partnership who made it possible. It was a combination of several things. One, the type of program I needed to contribute my labor hours during the construction of my home. Two, the government funding or the loan that I was able to receive, especially for affordable homes. The down payment assistance from our county local housing office, and also the support of the commissioners who back then also had the allocation for the funds to waive that mobility impact fee. All of that was possible thanks to this different fundings. So yes, I am personally benefiting from this mobility impact fee, but so are the rest of the community, and so are the rest of the thousands of homeowners that we have helped through Florida Home Partnership. I don't know about you all, but I think that's the perfect formula of how to fix affordable housing. One, everyone contributes a little bit here and there, and it all happens, it all becomes possible.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarado.
We can no longer just have one agency.
Appreciate your comments. Vanessa Josie is virtual, followed by a Donald Hampton and a Denise Herndon. Is Vanessa on the phone?
Yes, I am. Good
Hey,
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, County Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking today. I'm Vanessa Josie. I am a resident of Waimama. I am also the COO for Florida Home Partnership, which I've been working here for the last 21 years. As Teresa just mentioned, we are a nonprofit home builder that utilizes the USDA program for families under 80% of the median income. FHP has been able to change the face of South Hillsborough County, building more than 1,100 homes in 8 different communities. On December 1st, we were happy to celebrate 30 years of being incorporated. We continue to use the mutual self-help program successfully because we have adapted to changes needed and market conditions. Large tracts of land are no longer available, and we're building more smaller communities because of the skyrocketing land costs. Funds for the self-help program are limited, but unfortunately the need for affordable housing is not. Working with our partners for the last 3 decades, we have celebrated beautiful, thriving communities for low and moderate income families. It is FHP's goal to continue to create a better way of life for low and moderate income families, and we hope that you will reconsider and continue to support the impact fee waivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Josie. Donald Hampton, followed by Denise Herndon. Good morning, sir.
In this year 2024. I'm here to speak about item 8A8. On behalf of the residents of Waimama who've been lifelong residents and the ones like me who recently moved here, because I like the proximity to all the sort of the environmental benefits. ELAP, I believe, is a great program. And the preservation of sensitive environmental lands is something we support and encourage you to support. As the Waimama Village Plan states, parks, recreation, conservation, protect and enhance the Waimama natural environment. Folks, climate change is real. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Denise Herndon. Is Denise here? And then followed by Nathan Hagan and Ileana Centron. Good morning.
Hello, I'm Denise Herndon. I've been a Hillsborough County resident almost 29 years, and I just recently found out that, and I don't know when the Hillsborough County Commissioners voted on this, but subdivisions get all of their lift station costs paid for by the county and done by the county. This should be something that subdivisions take care of themselves. We have a need here for homeless people. We have a need here for people who actually can work. There are homeless people out there that cannot work because they cannot hold a job. And there's ways that the Hillsborough County Commissioners can move money around without raising taxes that you already have. Subdivisions should be paying for their own lift station services, and it can be done through their taxes. I was a board of director in a condominium in Hillsborough County. We paid for our own lift station, and that's a whole lot of money. You have the fencing, the antennas, computers, water, electricity that Hillsborough County is paying for. I don't have a lift station, and I know Eleanor Saunders, and the only people in my community that have lift stations is a subdivision. This is money that can be used. The other thing is you guys, I'm thinking that it's the Hillsborough County Commissioners that said it wasn't an ethical issue concerning, like when Buddy Johnson had put his name on the voting when he was voter of election. Why is Sheriff Cronister's name on every sheriff car on the building? That's money that should be taking care of the homeless people, the affordable housing people. There's a lot of junk in our budget for Hillsborough County, and it needs to stop. And I know Ken Hagan has been on this board a long time. And what are you doing, getting kickbacks from the developers? No. I don't know where this is going on that the Hillsborough County is paying for the subdivision's lift station. And I want to find out how much money my taxes are going to that, because I've been paying taxes for 29 years in Hillsborough County, and it needs to stop. You guys are voted officials, and it's going to stop. It took one person, Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, to stop things, and I am one person, and I'm going to stop this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Nathan Hagan, no relation, and Ileana Centron. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Nathan Hagan, no relation, spelled different. I'm a chapter lead of a group called YIMBY Tampa, which stands for Yes My Backyard. We work on pro-housing advocacy issues. Today we're talking about cutting a program that lowers fees and cuts red tape for affordable housing. This majority on this county commission has hung its hat on being the most conservative we had in over a decade. Conservative leaders on housing policy in places like Houston and Montana have demonstrated that if you cut red tape, you can achieve housing goals and bring down the cost of living. There's a strong case for conservative ideals in addressing our affordable housing crisis. Adding fees and red tape is not one of them. Adding red tape is not a conservative free market solution, yet this is what we are talking about today with adding mobility fees for affordable housing. The county commission should consider instead removing red tape for affordable housing, removing red tape for and other developments as well, especially apartments and more dense forms of housing near existing infrastructure that doesn't put new burdens on our transportation network, wastewater management, and natural resources. If you want to raise revenue without increasing taxes, consider how you can remove red tape to maximize development potential in those places, and therefore generate new revenue in places that require the least amount of infrastructure subsidy. We need dense infill housing in our urban service area along transit corridors. That's the solution. That's a much more effective mechanism for increasing revenue, keeping costs low, and reducing taxpayer burden. Raising fees and red tape on affordable housing is a rare policy that is anti-business, anti-poor, will increase homelessness, and will reduce the quality of life for our middle class who have to deal with the consequences of not addressing our housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ileana Cintron, followed by Joseph Westbrook. Ileana, are you online?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Commissioner Hagan. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ileana Cintron, and I'm a resident of Riverview and Deputy Director of Enterprising Latinas, a women's economic empowerment nonprofit organization. I want to express our opposition to the elimination of the Affordable Housing Relief Program, cutting impact fees for developers of market-rate housing, which help in the production of affordable housing. Hillsborough County has become unaffordable really fast for so many families who are struggling to pay for housing and basic necessities. It is well documented that we're far behind in the production of affordable housing units to create more options for low to moderate income families. Nonprofit developers of affordable housing mix and match dozens of funding sources to make their projects happen and need the waivers of these impact fees to make the projects viable. What we need is more incentives than waivers of impact fees for affordable housing developers to build more of these units and an additional increase in impact fees for market rate housing. As a community, we should strive for policies that give a chance to all families across social and economic backgrounds to have quality of life in our county, and that is achieved by our county government being a partner in making affordable housing projects possible. It is already hard for many families looking to afford rising rents and housing costs, and this is already displacing families or pushing them farther away from their places of work and schools, making it more expensive to afford to meet their basic needs. Basically, a vicious cycle. We're also concerned about how this move may make the county and affordable housing developers ineligible for federal funding that requires public-private partnerships for affordable housing. We request the BOCC spend more time analyzing this measure and having the appropriate conversations with stakeholders and concerned residents to develop smart and strategic actions to promote additional affordable housing units and stable, healthy, and safe housing for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cintron. Got Joseph Westbrook. Is Joseph here? Followed by Jenna Bernstein. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners and staff. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that. Gosh, there's a lot of important things this morning. I feel guilty for taking 3 minutes on my little issue. But however, it's an issue for me, and I've been a resident of Hillsborough County for 53 years of my 54 years on this earth. And thank you. I'm having an issue with right-of-way and stormwater. Ms. Myers, I reached out to your office as well. This is something that is absurd to me. I'm being held liable for something I didn't do. I have a hearing date tomorrow, on Friday, with the magistrate court. I feel like I'm being charged with a crime that I'm not guilty of. That's how I feel. I've reached out to your office. I've reached out to probably 9 different people. I have a list, date and times. I'll give that to you. And everyone says, I'll get back to you. I'll speak to my supervisor, I'll get back to you, and no one gets back to me because they don't care. This has been dragged on since September of last year. I have photos, adjacent, right across the street, same exact culvert pipes that are installed at all of my neighbors' property, but yet I feel I'm being singled out. Maybe the county attorney might want to take a look at this. I'm not going to hire an attorney to go here on Friday because that's an expense I shouldn't have to pay. Palm River's been neglected its entire life. Up until about 12 years ago, we didn't have drinkable water. And I thank Mr. Miller for that, as I was the one that spearheaded that project for Palm River. We got 2,300 homes of water. I have pictures I've sent to your office as well, dating back to 2000 February. My goddaughter was standing in my front yard, and that picture clearly shows those culvert pipes were in place. And they're telling me it hasn't been there. I have the 35 millimeter that I dropped apparently in the parking lot, and the kind officer just brought me. Thank you so much. Apparently my picture's in there. He recognized me. However the case may be, I also took a lot of hours of my time to drive around my neighborhood. I have 97 homes within a 1 mile radius north of my property. Exact same situation I'm in. I've asked several times, who's my accuser? I think I have the right to meet my accuser. No one's made a complaint. Zero. There's no one to give me a record of who's made this complaint to say this is done illegally. And again, I've resided in this home since February of 1998. 25 years here. All of a sudden there's a problem? Well, I know where the problem came in from. 3 years ago, just adjacently to the south of me, a contractor built a brand new home. He had major issues with the flood. He brought in too much dirt. They blamed me and they blamed my neighbors. Funny enough, my neighbors got the same letter I got on the same exact day. Mailman delivered probably 15 of these. Their case has been dropped. I've shared that with everyone along the line. I've shared that in an email I sent to your office, and every single person I've forwarded these emails. Anyway, I'll wrap this up. I'm sorry, guys, to take your time because your issues are far more important than mine.
Mr. Westbrook, if you just come over here to the side, our staff's going to get with you on this issue right here.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
I'm sorry, guys. Thank you for your time.
Final two speakers this morning, Jenna Bernstein, followed by Brooke Ward. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jenna Bernstein. I'm native born in this county, 1969. I'm going to be 54 in a couple days. Well, not really, 55. I'm 29 and holding. Anyway, there are two commissioners that are well aware of who I am. This is a photo. Can you see it? Can you put on that? Monument there?
Yes.
That is the Confederate monument on the old.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
The old, is anybody familiar with what that photo means? Anybody? Anybody born and raised here? That's where the Confederate monument stood for almost 55 years in front of the old county courthouse, and there were 5 flags that represented Florida on our seal. And there was a deal with Joe Chalora, Jan Platt, and Helen Gordon Davis, because I was here when there was a decision when they took the flags off the seal, it would go in the county building. But there was boo-hoo, it hurts their feelings. And that was removed from the county building, which is a handshake between citizens and a county commission. It was supposed to stay. I wear this flag because 25,000 Jews served in the Confederacy. Shema Yisrael, let me give my own invocation. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Abraham Myers. Fort Myers is named after a colonel in the U.S. military who was a Confederate. And guess where he was stationed after Zachary Taylor in Tampa? At Fort Brooke. But you don't have any placards about him being here because he was a Confederate. I'm here because that's what it looked like in 1935. That's what it looked like in 2017. Get a good look at that, right? This.
May you speak in the microphone, please?
This is what it looks like in Brandon now. We'll move it to a better place. We'll move it, it'll be clean. It'll be safer. No light on at night. Look how disgusting it is. So I'm asking you, and where's Kemp? Oh yeah, remember you ran from me when they were tearing it down? Remember the girl in the car when you ran from me? Sorry, I have to address her. Yes, you ran from me.
Continue.
In 2017 on Labor Day when they tore it down. How good is the county now because the monument's in a cemetery? How you doing with that, with your homeless people in Hillsborough County? It's all the Jew Confederates' fault, right? Yeah. My point is this, you allocate funds, the deal was, that same day, I was hysterical. I'm born and raised here. That is unacceptable. You talk about military veterans, I've restored 15,000 military headstones for the Veterans Affairs. I know Ronald Walters, head of the VA. I've restored 180 public monuments since George Floyd that put swastikas on Confederate monuments. This is a disgrace. It should have stayed in front of the courthouse, and you Sue, like I told you, shoe to your face when you ran, keep smirking at me. I'm the Jew that my people are being annihilated in anti-Semitism. You keep shaking your head. Put the camera on you.
Thank you, Ms. Bernstein.
That's all you need to know. Allocate funds to fix your monument that was such an eyesore.
Is Brooke Ward virtual?
God bless you.
Is Ms. Ward online?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Good. Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Well, good morning. I'm Brooke Ward. I'm here this morning virtually speaking on behalf of Food and Water Watch and our Hillsborough Rate Hike Coalition, which represents over 11,000 Hillsborough County residents. I want to start by thanking you for the opportunity to be able to join virtually. This is my first time taking advantage of this, and it was very user-friendly, so thank you. You've heard a lot about affordable housing today, and a huge part of affordable housing, in fact, 10 to 15% of housing costs are taken up by the energy burden, where some Hillsborough counties are paying more than 12% of their income toward their utility bills. This is not normal. This is higher than the Florida average and much higher than the national average. Just last week, Tampa Electric, our regional utility, introduced a new base rate case for this year They are asking for an 11.5% return on equity for shareholders, and which is the highest ask in the nation, and for at least $1.14 billion in rate increases over the next 3 years. So Tampa Electric has some of the highest bills in the country currently. And a lot of times when we've been coming to y'all, you have said, well, we don't impact rates directly with this body, but here is an opportunity to get involved in the process. You represent over 700,000 of TECO's 820,000 residential customers, and you are a TECO customer as the Hillsborough County, and you have the opportunity where you could intervene in the rate case hearing as an interested party and give a representative voice to the Hillsborough County residents. And so we're asking that you help us out, intervene in this rate case, and thank you for your time. Sorry for the dog in the background.
That's quite all right. Thank you, Ms. Ward. Appreciate your comments. All right, that closes the public comment portion of the agenda. Can we have a motion to approve the consent?
So moved.
Motion, Commissioner
Second.
Kemp, second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote on the consent agenda. All
Motion carried 7-0.
right, Bonnie, I have a 9:45.
Yes, thank you. The first item is item G1. This is to receive a report on the Consolidated Impact Fee Assessment Program. This will be related to D1, which is the public hearing, and then B1, which one will follow. Cheryl Howell's here, and Adam Gormley is also available for any questions.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cheryl Howell, Assistant County Administrator of Equity and Community Impact. During the Future Issues portion of the Board of County Commissioners regular meeting held on January 17th, 2024, Commissioner Kemp requested County Administration to bring back a report on the Consolidated Impact Fee Assessment Program, including an exact description of the program, what the program covers, the previous budget outlays, and the affordable housing provided in the last 5 years, so the board could understand the impacts on the county's budget as well as the impacts to the affordable housing program. Pursuant to Commissioner's request, the following is a report on, one, the history and description of the program, type of fee assessment subject to relief, previous budget outlays, and the number of affordable housing units that were impacted here. Hillsborough County originally adopted an affordable housing relief program for transportation, fire service, and park impact fees in 1992, which allowed for county funds to be expended for the payment of the subject impact fees for affordable housing projects. In 1996, the county consolidated its separate impact fee ordinances, including its Affordable Housing Relief Program ordinance, into a single ordinance, the Consolidated Impact Assessment Program ordinance, which has periodically been amended and updated since that time. The Consolidated Impact Assessment Program ordinance offers relief to eligible applicants within the county. To qualify, applicants must submit forms prescribed by the county administrator. Approved applications receive relief from impact fees related to park sites, road improvements, right-of-way, and fire rescue service. Eligibility is determined based on family income not exceeding 80% of the HUD-established median family income. Eligible households include single-family units and multifamily projects meeting several different criteria. Multifamily projects are prioritized on a first-come, first-served basis. Projects with qualifying amenities may also receive additional relief. Relief from multifamily programs are paid over a 3-year period, and single-family affordable housing is paid in full when it's due. Impact fee is subject to a restricted covenant recorded in public records. Now, under the current program status, we have listed the type of impact fee assessment subject to the relief, the income eligibility for persons living in the units, the type of housing eligible for relief, the number of units applicable to the program, the budgeted amounts for the past 5 years. The type of impact fee assessment subject to relief are park sites, road improvements, right-of-way, and fire rescue service. The income eligibility is 80% median family income, and it's for single-family and multifamily rental projects participating in other appropriate local, state, and federal low-income housing programs. Over the past 5 years, and I did have a chart here. I'm not sure how to kind of get it up. But over the past 5 years, in FY19, we had $400,000 budgeted for this. We had 155 units. For FY20, it was $400,000, and we produced 200. Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much, sir.
Is this that you're reading off of? Are you trying to?
I'd like it up here.
Yes, ma'am. I
Well,
can put it right here on this. Yes.
I apologize for the delay. Okay, we had $400,000 allocated, and the number of units for FY20 was 288. For FY21, let me just move this up just a little bit for myself. For FY21, we had $400,000 allocated, but we had $384,000 expended with 377 units. For FY22, it's $400,000 with 513,000 expended. The number of units was 179. And for FY23, it's 599,626 with 249 units impacted thus far. And those numbers fluctuate a little bit. If you recall, I said that the multifamily units, the impact fees are paid over a 3-year period. For the single-family units, it's paid all at one time. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any questions or comments on the report? I know we'll probably have discussion on the other items, but if not, can we have a motion to receive the report?
I'll move
Commissioner
that. I do have just a couple comments. So in all, just to look at this, the impact fee program's been in place. The impact fee relief waiver program has been in place for affordable housing since 1992.
Yes, and that was consistent with what was happening throughout the state. In 1992, the Sadowski Act was also passed, and the Sadowski Act is most commonly associated with our SHIP program. And so this was another tool to help to create a capital stack for creating affordable housing.
And, you know, I was taken by, I think, we permitted up to $800,000 a year. At least I read that somewhere in terms of more recent years. But it looks like we never ever even reached that top amounts.
No, ma'am. You know, so I look at the allocated amounts that's budgeted for those programs.
Right. I understand. So in all, it looks, we don't have a count for 24 yet on the number of units. But
no, ma'am.
Roughly, it looks like we spent about $1.8 million over 5 years for 1,250 units is what I've got, because between 19 and 23, I know you don't have that added up, but I was looking at it. I didn't add the final year in because we don't have housing numbers for those years. So I just wanted to point it out because it's so de minimis in our contribution to this. $1.8 million for 5 years as impact fee housing waivers, and there were 1,250 units built with that money or incentivized by that money. And it looks like in many years, we reached nowhere near what we had even allocated in our budget for incentivizing more housing because developers just didn't even consider it, I guess, enough of an incentive. But, and even though it remained the same, and we have the housing problem out there and all, it looks like it incentivized about 1,250 units and about one $1.8 million or so. But thank you. I thought it was really important for us to understand, because when this was brought up to just end this 3-decade-old program of waivers, when this was brought up, we had absolutely no discussion of what we provided for now or in recent time. And I think it's important for the public, for this board and everyone to have an idea of the scope of this program. I never had any sense of the scope of this program and what it did for so little resources that we were able to do this. So thank you for that presentation. I move to accept the report.
Okay, a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Commissioner Kemp, second Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Wostel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have to say, at this point, I've got to start asking for finance tips from 2 of my commissioners, because every time we find pots of millions of dollars, it always gets pointed out how diminished it is. So I'm feeling like I'm doing something wrong. I'm $2 million, $4.5 million bank account found, $15 million a year, all such small amounts. $250 million come up, tiny amount. I mean, I'm doing something wrong. It must either be that, or it's always de minimis when it's with other people's money. And speaking of other people's money, Mrs. Howell, you've been an expert in affordable housing for decades. Is that about right? How long have you been working in funding affordable housing?
Yes, decades would be correct.
Okay, decades. Decades is a good number. You mentioned the Sadowski Fund, which I'm a supporter of. You also handle the CDBG funds, which I point out, even though the Fed only prints their money and they don't back it like we do. These specifically, though, these are actually, if the developer doesn't cover the impact fees and this fund does, who gets the burden of these impact fees if we don't charge the developer enough, or we fund them and we waive them with this program? Who's really paying them? People's property taxes, right?
Impact fees are paid upon initiating the project.
Right,
so,
but
yes.
With this program, when we waive them,
yes, sir.
Who's
yes, sir.
picking up the tab?
Yes,
Every
sir.
other single homeowner in Hillsborough County, commercial real estate owner. So when we're talking about property taxes, unless someone on this board is trying to insinuate that minorities that struggled for decades to even be allowed to take a loan from a bank, because they literally redlined them at banks until the 1950s to be eligible for a loan. A bank would not write a loan for those that were redlined into minority districts that struggled for centuries for home ownership, the American dream. That if we subsidize impact fees through this method, we are leveraging money. I don't care if it's a penny, but we are leveraging money from people that weren't allowed to take out a loan until at least the 1950s, until they realistically fixed it until like 1980 through CRAs.
I just want to clarify, yes, sir, that these are general fund revenue taxes that's covering this.
Okay.
So just for clarification.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Owen.
Yeah, and I was going to clarify that too. Thank you, Commissioner Wostel. And I guess right now we're just receiving the report.
Yes.
I'm trying to think what the appropriate time for that. We've kind of gotten to debate on it. Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate now to debate this, or?
I would say hold off until we either approve the ordinance or actually rescind the policy, consider rescinding the policy.
Okay, so I'll hold my comments then.
Okay, so we got a motion to accept the report. Commissioner Kemp, second Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote on G1.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next item is item D1. This is a public hearing to hear from the public and to adopt an ordinance amending the Consolidated Impact Fee Assessment Program ordinance. Cameron Clark will take you through the public hearing. There have been several who have signed up to speak.
Good morning.
Good morning, Board. Cameron Clark, Assistant County Attorney. This item is an amendment to the impact fee ordinance that would remove the Affordable Housing Relief Program. It would remove a couple of definitions that only relate to that section and it would remove a paragraph regarding the school impact fee interest that was originally intended to be used for school impact fee relief for affordable housing. This is a public hearing. I'm happy to take any questions you might have, and also staff is present if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. First three speakers signed up: Elizabeth Strom, followed by Catherine Coyle, and then Humira Afzal. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Strom. In addition to being a Hillsborough County resident, I also do research and I teach about affordable housing issues. And so I was really kind of surprised when I heard that you were thinking of rescinding this waiver. I work with counties and with the state government, and I know all across the state we're looking for more tools to subsidize affordable housing. And I honestly thought I had misread the item on the agenda because I could not believe that Hillsborough County wanted to take away one of the few tools we have to help build affordable housing. Now, to be clear, we have impact fees because we need to somehow find the money to pay for services for new development. Either we're going to have to have everyone's millage go up, or we pay impact fees for new development. But we waive the impact fees in very targeted ways. This is the waiver, as we saw from Ms. Howell, is not used by thousands of units. It's hundreds of units. The fiscal impact is very small. And on the other hand, it leverages a great deal of investment and help for those people who need those few hundred units a year that we're building. To be clear, this is targeted at families that earn 80% of the median income. For Hillsborough County right now, that's about $56,000 a year. That's a bit higher than the average teacher earns. We're talking about the people who are your support staff here at County Center. We're talking about nursing aides. And these are the people we want to keep in the county. We don't want them to have to commute hours to get here. And these are people who can afford about $1,400 a month for rent, who could buy a house about $150,000 to $175,000. And these are not people that our private developers are racing to serve. These are people the market has left behind. And so we want to do whatever we can as the public to make sure that these people, these are working people, and we want them to be able to stay in our county. As for the argument that we're subsidizing them with the general budget, we do that all the time. That's what it means to be part of a society. I pay school taxes and I do not have children. I'm not complaining about that because I understand that part of my duty as a resident of this county is the well-being of the entire county. And that includes school children who are not my children. It includes teachers who do not teach my children. It includes the nursing aides who help my mother with dementia. And I don't want them to have to be commuting from 3 counties over to provide that service. So I hope you do not accept this change, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Strom. Catherine Coyle, followed by Humira Afzal and Ernest Coney Jr.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Catherine Coyle. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Habitat Hillsborough. I'm here to speak on this particular item. Thank you for your time. It's come to our attention you want to consider rescinding this impact fee relief for affordable housing, specifically regardless of type of housing, whether it's rental or home ownership, which we think is a huge mistake, specifically for what we do, as you heard from previous speakers, and how we help even homeless people get into homes. There is no other source, that's what I want to make clear, there's no other source that actually gives this type of relief. There are other funding sources for other types of things, whether it's construction or land acquisition, but specifically for these types of fees, there's no other source except this one. I can cite the facts and figures as far as the Schimberg Center of Housing. Nearly 30,000 affordable housing units are actually in a deficit in the Tampa MSA. Your specific study for Hillsborough County Local Assistance Plan from 2022 to 2025, which you transmitted to the state, provides an incentive strategy 3C that acknowledges that affordable housing actually is the #1 issue identified, along with low wages, health, education, transportation right behind it. What I want to give you is a little bit more perspective too. Ms. Strom actually from USF noted 56,000. That is for a certain size family. In particular, we actually have some upcoming developments in the next 2 years, one in particular that we're working with the county on, where we've agreed to do half of the units. So 9 of these units are actually at 50% AMI or less. We are going to have several homeless families that are able to move in. At a 50% AMI today, that means that family of 4 only earns $43,000 a year, which is unbelievable if you try to imagine how it is to afford healthcare and food and electricity and transportation on top of that. Just to put it in perspective, historically, I went back historically back to 2017. We did receive impact fee relief on scattered lots throughout the county, in particular Hillsborough Habitat. These fees do go up over time as well. 2017, we had 5 homes in Hillsborough County. We received approximately $2,400 per home in relief, all the way through 21-22, where we did 8 townhomes over on Mason Street, where there was a relief of $7,000 per unit. In the next 2 years, because we also are trying to upgrade and improve the number of units we're pushing out, we have close to 40 units next year that we have planned, and we're over 40, close to 45 the following year. Many of those, as I said, everything we do is 80% and under. Many of those are going to be 50% and under, and also targeting homeless and disabled veterans. I've estimated the amount just within 24-25 for the impact relief that we're going to be doing for a large subdivision out in the county, and it's going to be $250,000 that we're going to have to come up with.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
your comments.
Please do not abolish this.
Humeria Afzal, followed by Ernest Coney Jr.
Yeah, I actually already went earlier, but my name was on there again. But I did forget to give you all the programs from the Homeless Memorial on Monday. So I have a copy for everyone, and I would like you to take a few minutes of your day and look at the names of the 110 people who died on our streets. So I forgot to give this to you earlier, so I have 5 copies.
Thank you for your comments. Ernest Coney Jr., followed by Ashon Nesbitt. Good morning.
Good morning. Ernest Coney Jr., the CEO of the CDC of Tampa. Thank you for this opportunity to just speak before you. I just want to bring a human element to it. I was born and raised in Tampa, been in Hillsborough County all my life. In my short lifetime, I've seen homes go from $50,000 to over $400,000, just in my lifetime. I now have to look at my daughter and tell her, you may need to live in Daytona or Jacksonville because you cannot afford Hillsborough County. The great thing about living here is our leadership. We've always come together to figure out what's the best things for our residents in our communities. We've come up with these type of incentives. Florida has come up with the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund. When I go to other states, they don't have these. Other states actually can allow their property taxes to increase. So if you build a $2 million house next to a $70,000 house, their property taxes increase because of the $2 million. We've adjusted for everything to make sure that our residents have this ability. And that's what we're here today fighting for. We're not fighting for people who are moving from New York with $500,000. I'm fighting for my daughter who may not be able to afford to live here today. I'm fighting for the people who are working in Walmart right now to be able to have a home and have the dignity. I'm fighting for our teachers not to have to live in Citrus County and try to drive into Hillsborough County. I'm fighting for our first responders, that if a hurricane happens, they live in the community that they serve. So we know we have the leadership, and we've always done this locally. We've always done what's best for our communities. This is just another tool to help us get there. So the alternative is the 1,250 people could have been homeless. But because of our leadership, we've made sure they have the dignity of having a home. So thank you for your time. We know that you guys will always do what's right for our community and our residents here in Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ashon Nesbitt, who I think is virtual. Is Ashon Nesbitt virtual online?
Good morning. Ashton Nesbitt did not sign in.
Thank you. Dana Lazarus, followed by Denise Herndon.
Good morning. My name is Dana Lazarus. I'm a homeowner in Hillsborough County,
and I am currently a housing technical advisor with the Florida Housing Coalition. So data shows that low to moderate income families have been struggling to afford housing in Hillsborough County for many years, but in 2020, local housing unaffordability took a drastic turn for the worst. Local governments and even our state legislature have been scrambling for solutions to the statewide housing shortage. In fact, the state of Florida amended HB 1339 in 2020 to expand allowable fee waivers for the development of affordable housing construction, including impact fees, permitting fees, site plan review, rezoning hearing fees, and engineering fees reduction. That is why news that this county, my county, where I am a homeowner, has drafted an ordinance to repeal one of the most tried and true affordable housing development tools comes as a bit of a shock. As an AICP certified data-driven urban planner, I would genuinely like to see the data that is motivating this action. All the data that I have seen, and it's my job, so I'm neck deep in it every day, writing reports, doing studies, and researching affordable housing, supports the pleas of your public to invest in affordable housing solutions like the impact fee waiver for affordable housing developers that we already have. If the data shows that there are issues with the program, there are many ways to restructure it. The program may be structured as a fee waiver, fee deferral, or fee modification. So rather than slashing it, a more calculated move might be to audit and study the efficacy of the current program and make adjustments if needed. Personally, and just personally, my own hat, Dana's hat, I'm a fan of impact fees and linkage fees and paying one's fair share. Impact fees pay for the much needed infrastructure and services required by new development. But affordable housing developers, which are very unique, human-focused organizations, are not who you should look to pay them in the middle of a housing shortage. The way affordable housing developers must structure their deals in order to offer housing units at a rate that is affordable to our hardworking, low and moderate income populations is quite complicated. These affordable housing developers are some of the most committed, tenacious people I've ever witnessed. It's a really hard business that delivers an imperative poverty reduction service in our county. We want to incentivize to help affordable housing get built. There's a similar rule to the rule of supply and demand in policy making. You want to tax and make more difficult things you want less of, and you want to incentivize and subsidize things we want more of. This is why we must continue to incentivize more affordable housing development. To give you some support for keeping the program intact, here's just a couple of the counties in Florida with a fee reduction program for affordable housing development: Manatee, Marion, Flagler, Miami-Dade, Santa Rosa, Orange, Palm Beach, Polk, and Seminole counties. And in fact, several of these have looked to Hillsborough's program as a model.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much.
Denise Herndon, followed by Russell Miller.
Hello, I'm Denise Herndon. I've been a respiratory therapist over 30 years. And like I said earlier, I've been a taxpayer of Hillsborough County for 29 years. I'm the advocate here for the homeless people that cannot carry a job. We need to do something for them. We need to do something for this affordable housing. Like I said earlier, we have voted you guys in. You are working for us. You're not working for the big developers. I don't understand why you can't help us. I have this saying, and Shirlene Hammond, who has tried making me homeless for a long time, a small owner of Brandon Ford, and she continues to try and do this. But my saying is, we all have to go number one and number two. Some of us have a golden pot to do it on, some of us do it in a bag, and some of us don't have a pot at all. But if we all don't go number one and number two, we die. There's no difference between any of us, no matter how much money you have and what you don't have. And in our community, we need to take care of the people who can't take care of themselves. Like I said, there are homeless people who can't hold a job, and that's who I'm here to represent, and nobody else, except anyone who needs housing. You county commissioners, we have Airbnbs, taxes could be put on them, and you as our county commissioners can make sure that those are people that aren't even staying in our community. Tax those. There's taxes on motels and stuff. There's all kinds of money without raising our property taxes. That money can be given to affordable housing and to the homeless. You guys have eminent domain. There's homes taken away from people for not paying their property taxes, for not paying their mortgages. You guys can go in there and take those homes and have there's plenty of people around that can remodel those homes for the Affordable Housing Act, for the people that can get in there. There's plenty of ways without raising taxes and without doing what you guys are trying to do here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herndon. Last speaker this morning, Russell Miller. Good morning, sir.
Morning. My name is Russell Miller. I've been a resident on and off of Hillsborough County since 1978. I do some stock market analysis, and some of you may recognize me from my political volunteer work. My mother used to come to these meetings when I was 10 years old. This is my first time getting a chance to speak, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Why is public housing, or housing in general, just becoming so expensive? As with most economic issues, big business and landlords usually have their way. And why shouldn't they, right? Profit is healthy for the economy, but not if it only goes to the few at the top. And what we're seeing in Hillsborough County is a rising cost of housing that affects everyone, particularly those in the lower income groups. Anybody in the lower 50% really feels the pinch. My rent was very stable from the time I moved back in 2013. My landlord was able to promise me only a 2 or 3% increase in rent until just a few years ago when it started to go up 10% every year. And you can imagine my income did not rise 10% every year, and I ended up being rehoused. I now live with my parents. Representative government is our only hope to stand up to these overwhelmingly powerful forces, forces that for 40 years have helped the rich and punished everyone else. We need to remember that homelessness is not a sad, inevitable threat to most Americans. It is a threat to economic growth. When people have homes, they can be teachers, school bus drivers, social workers, restaurant workers. They have health insurance. They become a benefit, not a burden. We have no renter's bill of rights. Our big business governor saw to that. His big donors helped him buy votes in the Iowa caucuses at a rate of almost $7,000 a vote. I wasn't in on that. But when we vote, we look for candidates who will serve the public, not the powerful. Please support funding for affordable housing. Hillsborough County residents are being priced out of rental properties, and corporations are buying up single-family homes to convert them into luxury rentals. No one looking for a home can compete with mega corporations, some of whom are not even funded by Americans, looking to snap up homes by the hundreds. Do not rescind this waiver. Regardless of right versus left ideology, we need the government to step in for us to protect us with all the tools available against homelessness, which has been skyrocketing. We need Hillsborough residents to feel safe in their homes, safe from being priced out by rich developers and rich investors. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, that closes public comment portion of the agenda. Now we'll go into board discussion. Commissioner Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I say we roll up our sleeves here and talk about what this ordinance really does. And if Mr. Bricky, if you could please come up to the front, please. So first, I do want to address some comments that I completely agree with, that we are working for the people, not for developers. And we want to talk about what this really is. And this is a relief, would you agree, for developers, correct? This ordinance?
In as much as the developers are building that unit.
When are impact fees paid?
Impact fees are generally paid, and Cameron can correct me if I'm wrong, at certificate of occupancy, I believe.
Okay, and that's paid for from the developer, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the thing here. And these funds that are being paid, I know that there's a statute that comes into play that shows MSTU funds may be used, but where are these funds coming from that are paying for these developer fees?
These funds that are paying these impact fees or mobility fees are being paid from the unincorporated area general fund, which the state refers to as a municipal services taxing unit. That's a particular technical name, but it's our unincorporated area general fund, which is funded primarily by property taxes, but also has some state shared revenues.
Okay, yeah. So in essence, the taxpayer of the unincorporated part of the county is paying for these fees that basically go to the developer. The developer is the applicant, is that right?
I believe so. I cannot give you a firm answer on.
Okay.
But yes, it's from the unincorporated.
Yeah, and that's the point behind this. And obviously, I'm bringing this item, but you know, when I look too at the previous boards when they raised impact fees before on the development community, which I agreed with, by the way, it was very clear that the people voting to raise impact fees stated that this was not raising impact fees on citizens, that this had to do, when you raise these fees, it has to do with the developer, which I agree with 100%. So if you're voting no on this and stating that this is a claim that, hey, this is going to impact the folks that are renting affordable housing units, well, that's just simply inconsistent with what was said before when we were raising impact fees. So, you know, it's my position that we should not be padding developers' pockets with taxpayer dollars. And that's what paying impact fees are doing, in essence. So, so thank you, Mr. Bricky. I don't have any more questions, but I think it's important for us to state what this is, and that this is a break for developers. These impact fees are being paid for by the unincorporated part of Hillsborough County taxpayer dollars, and that is the purpose why I think this portion of the ordinance shouldn't exist, because developers need to pay their fair share. Thank you.
Commissioner Kemp.
And I've always been a very strong advocate of developers paying their full share. We lost $1.5 billion in a decade earlier by having impact fees, which were starkly lower than Pasco, Manatee, and Polk counties. It was incredible, the little support we were giving for public infrastructure. You know, and growth does have to pay for itself. It makes sense. This is looking at, you're just painting all developers the same, but the only people who can get this are developers who are developing low-income housing developers. That's just the way that this ordinance works. It's only for someone doing that kind of development. And yes, it's being paid for out of our general taxpayer funds. We hear from a lot of people here in unincorporated county that are saying, this is okay, this is a good use of my taxpayer dollars. It's an important thing for us. And I heard, it was just very good, all the comments that were made, but I just like to go to just overall dignity. Again, in 5 years, 1,250 units that people would be homeless, wouldn't have. We were talking about incomes of, at 80%, $56,000 a year, you know, including teachers and nurses and all the people that power our county, to have them have a safe and good place to live. And this is a de minimis impact on our budget to subsidize this kind of housing. It is a threat, I agree. It's a total threat to our economic growth in this county if we continue to ratchet down and ignore this incredible need that we have here. Bob Henriquez had a program at the tax property appraiser's office some time ago, and they had economists in. And one of the things they said, for every person that you bring into the county with $100,000 income, they need to have 4 support people there to support the kinds of services and goods that they need. Those 4 support people can't live in this county if we do not provide out there some kind of reasonable, affordable housing. It is a stranglehold on economic development and growth. We have 10,000 homes in Hillsborough County that have now been bought by private corporations, mostly 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes in good schools that are privately owned by corporations that are competing and taking people, not giving people an opportunity to buy an affordable house or live in an affordable place, and are controlling our market in a way that has never been seen before. It's just stunning what's happened in the last 5 years. Florida, and this is from the Habitat for Humanity letter that was sent, Florida is among the states with the highest income equality. A January 2023 article in Forbes stated Florida is the 6th most unequal state in terms of income out of all 50 states. The article further analyzed incomes by county, with Hillsborough County listed among the counties nationwide where there's significant earnings gap. If we're going to become a place where businesses thrive, and we know that tourism and those kinds of business are something that is a very big industry here. And we are working in many ways to keep that true, to support our community. But, as if we do not make affordable opportunities available for housing for people to live in, we are going to lose our workforce. We are not going to have, and we're already doing that. I mean, we can see where there's lots of places where there can't be clerks in businesses, and a lot of these jobs are going unfilled because people can't afford to live here and live on those kinds of salaries. We need to do something to help not only full-time working people in jobs that we need to have to support us, but as well to have opportunities or places for people to live that can't work. That was brought up. But we even had our presentation this morning about the mental health services. There's lots of people that are trapped in lower income places, and we have to provide stable and good housing with dignity, as was said here, a safe and good place. So I will not support the repeal of this 30-year program in Hillsborough County.
Commissioner Wostel.
I think that dignity is an interesting word when we're not being honest to the voters and specifically the taxpayers. We've said over and over that this is property taxes. Property taxes are an unavoidable cost of living. Commissioner Kemp, how much did you just try to increase the millage rate in Hillsborough County in September? I can't recall. Was it a half mill or was it a full mill?
I think I was looking at a half mill in our unincorporated county.
Thank you.
And specifically dedicated to mobility, to roads, to transportation, as well as fire services.
Perfect. So that is another increase to your cost of living that you can't avoid. All that we're talking about is protecting people's cost of living in Hillsborough County so that other commissioners don't continue to try and increase your cost of living by raising your property taxes. These are the ways that we can do that. Forgotten about bank accounts that are impact fees, that are things that should have gone into preventing the need for more property taxes to go into that area. I think that this is people alleged during my campaign trail that developers were getting subsidized, and I didn't believe them, but it turns out they were right, but it's through methods like this. Property taxes are a direct increase to the cost of a home. I believe the average median home price now in Hillsborough is about $400,000. I'm sure that's not including only the unincorporated area, but that's somewhere around, let's call it $6,000, $6,300 a year in property taxes. That's $6,300 more a year that that individual now needs to make to own a home. Property taxes are a hidden increased cost of living. They are a hidden barrier to entry of home ownership, and us making sure that we're not spending it on people that are already living paycheck to paycheck, therein by making them also homeless because they can no longer afford to live their home and then have to go and rely on a government subsidy, is exactly what this board should be doing to offer the homeowners of Hillsborough County dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be really fast. And, you know, Commissioner Kemp, and to the public, I agree with most everything you're saying about the importance of affordable housing. This is not that. This is a benefit to the developer. So the questions you got to ask yourself, or the questions I've asked, are 4 questions. You know, are developers going to stop building because of these impact fees not being laid off on the citizens and the taxpayers anymore? That's not the case. Do we treat developers differently than other developers? We shouldn't. We should treat the development community the same. Should the taxpayers pay impact fees for developers? I think that's a clear answer of no. And then as to the part of it being de minimis, you know, we've labored over this, and I know it's a different political philosophy, but I will say it again and again that I think every tax dollar is precious. We shouldn't call anything de minimis. We should treat the taxpayer dollars as precious. And in this case, the taxpayers, in essence, through this ordinance, are paying developers' fees. So, Mr. Chairman, I am going to move for approval on it. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to approve, Commissioner Owen, second Commissioner Wostel. Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you. I appreciate the way you framed those questions, because I think that those are exactly the right questions. And I respect the fact that reasonable people can come to different answers to those questions, because as I went through the 4 questions, I think that I just simply come out differently on what our role is and what we ought to be investing in. And I say investing because at the end of the day, I don't see this as a giveaway. I see it as an investment. And you're absolutely right. No amount of tax dollars, particularly precious property tax dollars, is de minimis. But it is, as a percentage of our overall budget, not a terribly large number to invest, given the return that we see that we've gotten for that investment. And I think that when you have a problem like affordable housing, which everyone agrees is a major challenge for this community, I just don't think it makes sense to take tools out of the toolbox. It makes more sense to keep the tools in the toolbox. And this particular tool, while not a de minimis amount, I think is a relatively modest amount given the return in the number of units that we've seen produced from it. I don't know if some of these units might not get built without this incentive. I don't think that we have any evidence one way or the other, but I think that over the 30 years of this program, it's been shown to be effective in a modest way in helping us to achieve some of our goals when it comes to increasing the availability of affordable housing. So I am not going to support getting rid of this incentive. I think it's something that we ought to leave on the books. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to look at this from a different perspective. To me, we have 2 types of developers. We have developers that build low-income housing, and then we have developers that build the housing probably for me that I cannot afford, okay? So those individuals who look like me, those individuals who work over at the school board, those individuals who serves our fire department, work for our police department, they cannot afford housing. And I can remember back in the day working for the county when the county was receiving all of the funds from the Sadowski Act to help with affordable housing. Now we do not get those funds as much today. So when we're talking about helping and taking something out, why punish those people who, we're saying the developers, but when you're building an affordable housing below 80%, you're helping an individual who want to become a homeowner on the largest asset. I support people who wants to become a homeowner, who wants to have the opportunity to buy a car, who wants to have the opportunity to go off to college or to get a trade. And today we're in the boardroom talking about what are we going to take, who's going to benefit from this, the developers. But it's one type of developer. It is the low-income developers who are building these types of affordable housing. So I'm going to stop there, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to support it. Give everyone an opportunity from the developer who is helping our people who want to become a homeowner. Thank you.
Commissioner Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to briefly respond. And thank you, colleagues, for your comments. They're all well taken. As to the Sadowski Fund, I just want to remind everyone it's going to be funded more heavily than it's ever been funded by the state through the Live Local Act. So there is going to be a surplus of funding for affordable housing through the state. And again, I hear everybody stating that we need more affordable housing. I just don't think that paying the developers impact fees through taxpayer dollars is the way to go about it. I think that there are other ways to go about it, as the state legislature has done through the Live Local. So again, I just want to make it clear that this is not any type of fee that's being raised on anybody that's renting a unit or purchasing a unit. This is a developer cost that is paid by the taxpayers, and that's why I move for approval. Thank you.
Commissioner Kemp.
And I just like to respond to the Live Local, Sadowski. I keep hearing about all this money that's coming in. I haven't seen 1 cent land in Hillsborough County yet of increased funding from that. I keep hearing that promise, and I'm not sure I believe it at all because I haven't seen it, and I don't know how it will materialize. So I just, and I'm very disappointed that our Sadowski Fund funding from the state has been swept for decades now. We would have gotten $10 or $11 million a year, and we haven't gotten it, which was one reason we put in our affordable housing fund. But this is, tools like these are critically needed.
Okay, we got a motion to approve amending the ordinance by Commissioner Owen, second Commissioner Welstel. No other comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Cohen, Kemp, and Myers voted no.
Okay, B1.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cameron Clark, Assistant County Attorney. Item B1 is the same program except for the mobility fee ordinance. This one was done by board policy, Mr. Chair, so this was not an advertised public hearing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Motion to approve rescinding Board Policy 03040107. Commissioner Owen, second Commissioner Welstel. No other comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Cohen, Kemp, and Myers voted no.
All right, thank you. Bonnie, next item.
Thank you. The next item is item B2. This is to direct staff to draft amendment to the Land Development Code regarding private railroad crossings. And Adam Gormley is here to present this item, and I do believe there is a representative from CSX here as well for any questions.
All right. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Adam Gormley, Hillsborough County Development Services. Item B2 is in response to a request from Commissioner Owen to provide information on the county's authority to regulate public and private railroad crossings in the county. We have two types of railroad crossings. The public is one, for purposes of this report, where the crossing is on a public road. And those crossings are under the jurisdiction of the Florida Department of Transportation. County Public Works team does maintain some of the approaches and pavement around those public crossings. However, the jurisdiction is within Florida Department of Transportation. County Public Works has, specifically the Engineering and Operation Department, has retained a consultant to review some of the public crossings that we have and provide recommendations to assist DOT in their regulation of those crossings. The other type of crossing is a private crossing, and these are crossings where it's not crossed by a public road. It might be a private road, it might be an easement or other way of getting across. Those are not within the jurisdiction of Public Works. They're not maintained by County Public Works, and are looked at when development is undertaken that would provide a crossing. All development is required to show a means of getting from their site to a public right-of-way. In some instances, there is a railroad between the site and the public right-of-way. Right now, there is no explicit authority or requirement to coordinate with CSX or the railroad owners for those crossings. What I'm recommending today is that the board direct a land development code amendment to make that a requirement for any new development or redevelopment of a site that will need to cross a railroad track to reach the public right-of-way. Would recommend that this also include agritourism activities. There was an incident recently, an unfortunate incident on Jim Leffler Road, where there was an accident, and while that site didn't qualify as agritourism and was an unpermitted operation, it had all the characteristics that an agritourism operation could have. So we would again recommend that the board direct us to amend the land development code to require explicit approval, written approval from the railroad owner for any new or change in a private crossing associated with a development. We have met with CSX a couple times on this, and we do have Ms. Becky Snyder here from CSX if there's any questions on how they look at these crossings. But I'd say that the discussion, CSX would find it very valuable to have that kind of control and input on the front end of projects, and particularly for agritourism, because those get no review currently. So with that, available for any questions. If this would be in the first round of land development code amendments if the board approves this item.
All right, thank you, Adam. Commissioner Owen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Adam, for all your hard work and staff on this. I know that this has been a heavy lift. As far as the active and passive, if you could touch on that just a little bit more, especially for the public's purposes, on what those requirements are to have, because when you're referencing Leffler Road, let's talk about that one. That one basically has cross bucks, a stop sign, no light. So now we're dealing with a situation where people are traveling at night, driving over railroad tracks that don't have a light, only a stop sign. Can you just kind of talk about the difference in the requirements with active versus passive?
Yeah, so the active crossings would have passive as you described, the crossbuck stop sign, but no flashing lights or arms, control arms that would block the way. And the active would have those elements to it, and those are done in conjunction with CSX so that the timing of trains coming will activate the lights and the arm bars at an appropriate time. In terms of the looking at this going forward, some of the things that CSX will look at in making a determination, I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier, by having CSX involved at the front end, that will allow them to review what type of traffic is using that crossing and identify what type of controls need to be in place, whether it's active or passive, and some of the factors that they consider is what is the intended use of the crossing. Is it for a single-family home where just the homeowner will be coming in, or is it something that's being held out to the public, inviting them onto the site? The number of cars or crossings that would occur, and the hours of those crossings. So,
yeah, and so you're saying moving forward. So what about the existing passive ones? Because I guess there's been some confusion, and if the CSX representative would come up front, I really appreciate you being here actually today. Thank you for showing up today. As far as the existing passive, us as a body here, we obviously don't want to be preempted. We deal with state and federal law when it comes to train tracks, and also issues whether it's a private road. And I think, again, dealing with the Leffler Road one, that's you all own the road there. That's privately owned by you. Is that correct?
We own the road with it. Good morning, first of all. I'm sorry. My name is Becky Snyder. I'm with CSX Real Estate. We own the driveway, the roadway within our rail corridor. The remaining part of that roadway is privately owned by the landowner on the other side of the tracks generally, right?
Yeah.
So as far as what goes into, we have two different kinds of passive crossings, right? So passive crossings don't have warning devices. They have signs and regular traffic guidance to say what to do as you approach this intersection, which happens to be between a rail and a vehicle instead of a road and a road. For private passive crossings, whether it's now or later, right, was determined through some method based on whatever that intended use was at the time and what the landowner and the railroad partnered to feel would be the best situation for that grade crossing. And it was based on the use. So the Jim Leffler Road was a 2-family residential home with daily intermittent traffic, right? We learned, unfortunately, that that's not how it was being used. If in the event somebody who approaches the railroad and says, I would like to do this on my property, which would mean I would use this crossing now for this type of traffic, then we go through an exercise with them where we look at, like Mr. Gormley said, the intended use. Can we even permit that through a private roadway, right? If you start inviting members of the public into a public venue with public services, now we really want to direct them to look at that to become a public roadway or find access that is already public. So an alternative that gets them to a public road without having to cross on a private drive over the railroad tracks or to a bridge, something that's grade separated, right? Like our ideal is no crossing is the safest crossing. So then we look at the next best.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that how that particular venue was being used was not the correct zoning use. But I think we as a board and us as a county, and I know you all as CSX, we've got to kind of plan for the worst, right? In a lot of situations where people will take advantage of rules, laws, and zoning. It happens every day in Hillsborough County and every county across the state. So, I guess my big question is our authority as a local body, because to be frank, I would like to have requirements on these passive intersections, which I think are somewhere around 19. Is that safe to say, Mr. Gormley? Do you have the number? We're not talking about a lot of, right?
It's 20, yeah.
20, okay, 20. So we have 20 passives. And to me, I would love to create an ordinance.
20 private passives.
Private passives, yeah. Okay, so I would like to create some type of ordinance that would require, at a minimum, a blinking red light. And obviously, we don't want to overstep our bounds as a local body here. We understand that we're preempted on a lot of this stuff. And I did see that CSX made comments publicly that basically stated when the unfortunate incident happened that it's your local municipalities that need to make the decisions as to safety at these intersections. So do you know what's right or wrong? Is it something where it's up to us as a local municipality to make those decisions on the safety requirements? Or is that something that we would be preempted for? And I don't know, Adam, if that's a better question for you, but that's some of the confusion that I think is out there in the public is it up to us? Or do we not have authority? Are we preempted from making any type of ordinance that would govern safety measures at these intersections?
So, Commissioners, I believe we have the clear authority to regulate development and their use of these crossings. And when I say development, it is really any type of change of use. Single-family homes are included with development. So we have the authority to regulate development. It gets well within the purview of the county to look out for the public health, safety, and welfare to ensure that development that will have railroad crossings is done in a safe manner. And so I believe that the way this is structured is regulating the development itself that will draw the traffic across the rails. And I do believe this is an effective tool in working in partnership with CSX.
Yes.
That will have the tools to identify that up front and the regulatory teeth to say, this is what you must do, and if you don't do it, then your development can't occur.
Very good, yeah, and I think it's also worth noting too that while I understand this unfortunate situation that just happened, someone did lose their life as well at this intersection as an Amazon driver, which at that time it was probably being used commercially, obviously. So, and it wasn't a private venue. So there are some of these intersections that are just so extremely dangerous at night that I'm hoping, and I really appreciate CSX, you all working with the county on this. I'm really hoping, I'm gonna obviously move for approval on this, but I am really hoping that we can work together to create some real safety measures at these intersections that are just so extremely dangerous. Thank you.
All right, we got a motion to approve. Commissioner Owen, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cameron Cepeda. Commissioner Woolstle?
I wanted to ask, ma'am, I just drove by a plot of land, looked like it was mixed agriculture. It had a residential home on the front. It was completely gated, but there was a railroad crossing through it. And I mean, there was a full lit bars going across where they travel across those tracks. Is that something that you guys regulate? I mean, it's entirely on their property. It was gated around it, but it had a railroad crossing like you would go on like a paved street, but it was on a dirt road. So do you specifically require them to do that, or is that?
So it's through an analysis. Again, this would be the opportunity where the county could get involved, or would be able to get involved, right? So as we're approached with what they want to do on the property, we take a look at it. We engage a consultant, and generally the local DOTs or road authority, as well as FDOT, to give us their input and recommendations, but it's not a mandate the way it would be on a public roadway, right? So we get their ideas about what would make this crossing, quote unquote, safer based on how it's intended to be used. Without knowing the specific crossing you're speaking of, all I can say is that is most likely what had happened there. And in the instance of a private roadway, those costs are borne by the railroad and passed on to the user. So there's an element where everybody is, in terms of who is intended to be using it, is fully responsible for it, regardless of who's doing the work. Because when you talked about who regulates it, we have to do the work on those devices based on federal regulation, but they cost share with us on those.
Okay. Complicated issue. Thank you for making time for us.
Commissioner Kemp?
Well, no, I appreciate this discussion. I think it's really important. And so there's, just to be clear, every non-private road, all of those 20 are private roads where there are not lights flashing or some kind of device like that.
There are 23 private grade crossings where it's not a public road crossing the railroad tracks. And it could be a private road, could be an easement, it could be just some other way of access, but those numbers are not the public roads.
Right. So, I thought it was 23, what I remembered, and then I heard 19 and 20. But so I'll just tell you, I had a very close friend who 50 or 60 years ago lost family members, including her son, at a railroad crossing in Hillsborough County, where they were crossing for a picnic with a car full of children, including her son. And they were hit by a train. And so that it was out in the country. And even if there's not agritourism there, and even if, and we also have another problem where, as I understand from being on the Value Adjustment Board, the VAB board, there's complaints coming to code, and there's all these issues now that are coming with businesses or other places that are doing this without even notifying the county or getting, having notice. So it seems to me, all 23 of these crossings, whether they have business, whether we know about it, or triggered by a land use condition or application, need to be looked at. And I'm just wondering about, I know it would probably have to be triggered with the trains, I guess, in order to get the crossbars to go down to be protective, and, you know, I don't know what kinds of costs are associated with that. Barring that, it almost seems to me that there should just be some kind of connection in another way that doesn't require them crossing the tracks, because this is just, it doesn't sound like we have quite a adequate answer in my mind to preventing this in the future.
Yeah, can I speak to that? So as our railroad, right, we've been very excited by the county reaching out to talk with us about how to find alternatives, not just, adding active warning devices doesn't instantaneously make the crossing safer. It gives more notice, yes, but it's still reliant on the driver's decision-making and what they choose to do, regardless if it's a stop sign, if it's lights, gates, bells, whatever that is. So what we would like to do is find alternatives to get them from having to cross the railroad at grade where we can, or to consolidate and create better access at different locations that promote that. And so we have a program network-wide, right, and our network is 26 states, everything east of the Mississippi, where we have, on a routine basis, we go out and evaluate private at-grade crossings. The unfortunate element of that is that there's about 8,000 on our network, and they grow every day. We're opening more than we're closing, unfortunately. So we have an opportunity here with the county to team to look at, on the ground, the existing private at-grade crossings, and to see if there's ways that we can solve their access through a different way, a different manner. Can we get them out to a public road where they can cross with the lights and gates and bells? Can we get them to a bridge or an overpass, like you said before, or something like that? So that's what's really exciting to us, is this opportunity to collaborate with you all. In the short run, getting something that encourages these developers to engage us up front and not at the last minute is huge. It's incredibly huge, because it is a stringent process that we put this through, and it takes time. And a lot of times they contact us at the end. They have their legal access. What do I need to do, railroad? And when we say, whoa, put on the brakes, let's talk about this, now we're already under their time. Now we're going to impede their timeline, right? So they sort of back away from the table. So this is great to get it up front, engaged into the table before they get too far down their roadway improvement plan.
So, and just to appreciate that much, just to be clear, Adam, so this would trigger requiring written authorization from all rail line owners for development seeking private railroad crossings. But if they do, as some of these businesses are doing, they don't notify us, and we have 23 conditions out there in the county that have this issue. And we can put this in our land development code, but I'm looking at that doesn't really still solve the issue. So do we have we have a plan, and I know you said you're excited to do this, to going forward outside of this, we'll be looking at all 23 private crossings in Hillsborough County. Is that what we do going forward to evaluate for this?
I think that would be a fair thing to do. The Land Development Code amendment will be prospective for new development. I'll say if there is some activity that's going on there that's currently, say, unpermitted or not operating within the bounds of the rules, that could be that. When it was brought into compliance, it would be subject to this new requirement. But
right.
In terms of the existing crossings, that is something we can look at in conjunction with CSX to try to find alternatives. I will say the Jim Leffler Road situation, there is another road that's proximate to that, and we have been able to look at that and identify that as a alternate source of access. The ownership and status of it was a little unclear, but we have looked at that as a solution for that site. So yes, we will look at the other existing conditions in conjunction with CSX.
So we don't need a motion to additionally do that, because this refers to one thing, but I'd like to make sure that, you know, all three of those sites, and we have this opportunity now, which I think is excellent. Maybe follow this up with a motion in support of that, and to come back with a report or what we, it may take quite a while, but, or as we get, look at 5 of them or 10 of them, what we maybe need to do. I think I'll follow that. I'd like to make a motion after this.
Commissioner Owen.
Real quick, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know that we're colliding with agritourism here a lot too. And I promise you, as a board, we're going to be addressing this as well. As a matter of fact, addressing this today because the off-site impacts and substantial impacts to the surrounding communities right now, especially out in my district, out in the Plant City area, particularly, and South County for that matter. So we know that we're dealing with quite a few moving parts. So I, again, wanted to thank you for working so closely with the county on this. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, Commissioner Kemp, do you want to make another motion?
Yes, I'll make a follow-up motion that the county meet with CSX and evaluate the all 23 private, as they're described, crossings in the county to look at possible plans for what we can do to make those the safest possible conditions.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion, Commissioner Kemp, second, Commissioner Owen. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, thank you, Ms. Schneider, for being here. Appreciate it. All right, Bonnie, next item.
Thank you. The next item is item G2. This is to receive a report regarding the 10-year summary of county funding for the University Area CDC. This is related to the next item, which is item B3, which is the agreement with the University Area CDC. Ron Barton, Assistant County Administrator, will present this item.
All right, good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Commissioners. If you could pull the PowerPoint up. Thank you. As requested by Commissioner Myers in a previous meeting, we've compiled a report that looks at the last 10 years of funding to the University Area CDC. You see a written report, but for purposes of this morning, I'll go through a quick PowerPoint that summarizes some of the high points of the memo. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, staff's compiled a summary of county funding provided by the UACDC for the most recent 10-year period. As shown in the detail of the report, and I encourage you to read the report because it has a lot more detail, and an exhibit on the cost information. But during the past 10 years of this analysis, the county's funded the UACDC of approximately $16.8 million. Next slide, please. The primary sources of that funding are general fund, as well as county allocation of federal funds from CDBG. There are 4 primary departments, actually 5 primary departments, but I combined 2 under social services. So you can see the departments that have funded UACDC in the past and generally on an annual basis. Affordable housing, this is infrastructure only, and so that's periodic based on project initiatives. But economic development, 2.6 million, Parks and Rec, 6 million, and social services, 6.6 million. Next slide, please. The county support that we do provide takes a couple of forms. One is primarily operational, programmatic, but there are capital projects that the county has also supported over time. You can see here, I looked at the cost data in a different manner, not just the departments, but where are the dollars going to and how do they relate contractually. And so you'll see the first one is University Area Community Center, lease and management agreement over that 10-year period, $5.3 million. That's basically, I'll go into the details of it, but it's where we basically lease to the UACDC and they operate the facility. But we have certain expense requirements associated with that lease. Operational and programmatic support over the last 10 years is $9 million. That's been initially through social services. We revised a contract a couple of years ago with the UACDC, and so some of that operational funding now lies with economic development. I mentioned capital projects, so you'll see a number here for basically improvements in assisting with the campus development there. And then affordable housing projects, which I did not count in the number, but assistance on affordable housing in the area at about $10 million. So that gives you a view of the spending in a different manner. Next slide, please. The longest contractual agreement that we have is the lease with the community center. And that was initiated in 1999, and you can see here on this slide the initial components of the 1990 lease. I'm not going to go into too much of the detail. You can read it, but basically it's $1 a year rent with no revenue sharing. The county as well pays the UACDC in a reimbursement for operating the facility and maintenance, janitorial, basic upkeep of the facility for the earlier of 20 years of the lease term or until such time as the UACDC's endowment was funded in an amount sufficient to assume the obligations that the county was bearing. So that's a picture of how the lease was structured in 1999. You can see in the last bullet, there was a user fee or basically a management fee paid to UACDC, and you can see the $245,000 years 1 through 5, $270,000 6 through end of the agreement in 2039. If you could go to the next slide. I'm going to skip to the end. The agreement's been amended 3 times. The last was in 2019. You see here the summary of the 2019 amendment. And basically, it was to codify again costs that the county bears associated with the support of the UACDC and their operations of the facility. But it also extended the lease another 10 years to 2039 with another 2 5-year renewal subject to county approval. The UACDC obligations to fund its endowment, to take over the financial expenses. The language was modified from diligent to best effort. And in the last bullet, you can see that the 2019 lease codified $447,500 of support to UACDC for operations. You can see the breakdown here. I'm not going to go into that. In conclusion, a couple of slides. If you could go forward, thank you. So in summary, the county has been a significant investment partner and longtime funding partner for the UACDC, investing $16.8 million in the 10-year period that we looked at. Of note, and not included, as I mentioned in an earlier slide, we've also provided $10 million of support for affordable housing in the university area. We're in our 25th year of the lease of the community center. And currently, we still have a remaining term of 15 years with another 2 to 5-year renewal. Essentially, from 1999, with this amendment in 2019, we would be leasing the facility up to 50 years from its inception. Next slide. Really 3 points. The original intent of the UACDC to create an endowment that would minimize, if not make the county expenses unnecessary. That's been difficult for the UACDC. At our last report, I think it was around $500,000 in the endowment, but none of that endowment has gone in any way to offset county expenses in the lease. And the financial obligations for the county from 1999 to 2019 essentially have increased in each amendment. With that, I'll answer any questions. Of course, I'd like to see the report received.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move to accept the report and then want to come back and make some comments.
Okay, we got a motion to receive the report. Commissioner Myers, second Commissioner Cohen. If no other comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. Commissioner Myers, is this on B3 or is this?
Yes, it's on the
okay.
same item.
All right.
Okay. Ron and staff, I'd like to thank you for providing a very detailed 10-year report on the UACDC receiving funds from 4 county departments. The UACDC serves the county over the past 25 years, providing significant programs of service to the residents living in the university area. The UACDC manages the county's park and recreation center located on site. No other county park and recreation center are managed by a nonprofit organization like the CDC. The County Parks and Recreation Center should consider managing its own facility located at the UACDC. This would be a cost savings to the county and to the taxpayers. Therefore, my motion is to direct the county attorney's office to receive all agreements associated with the county's own UACDC with an aim towards transitioning the management of the facility to the county's Parks and Recreation Department by October 1, 2024-2025 fiscal year. Prior to that date, the county attorney will work with the administration to determine appropriate action required of the BOCC that may need to take place to accomplish the transition of management to the county. The UACDC is in my district, and I do support my district. But as we've just heard, this has been going on for a long time, and we have no other nonprofit that is running a county-owned facility of our Parks and Recreation Department. That is my motion.
Okay, we had a motion by Commissioner Myers. Any more discussion? Commissioner Kemp?
Yeah, I'm just, and I can appreciate your motion in this. I still feel like I don't understand, and I've looked through these materials. The current leasing arrangement, as I understand it, is lasting to already signed off on till 2039. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, I would think to the county attorney, just in terms, I mean, I guess we could look at it, but I just, we're obligated in terms of the contractual agreement that we've already exercised, correct?
Clearly, we're obligated to our contracts, but I think what's being asked of us is to review them all and see what's theirs to provide more information back to the board.
And just to be clear, and I appreciate this, but I wonder, it's maybe not under Parks and Recreation, maybe this is the only facility under Parks and Recreation, but we do have, I just don't know the circumstances with so many other county facilities that were built and operator, which we give regular support to, like, and for comparative purposes, it just seems like, and I have no idea of a complete list, but I would think that in this category, it's not operated by Parks, but something like the Carrollwood Center, the New Tampa Arts, the county owns Mosey, operated by a not-for-profit. I think the same thing is true of the History Center. There's, I'm sure there's a whole list of facilities that aren't under Parks. Regions, I don't know if that fits under that. I mean, and I have no way a complete list, but, have in some kinds of operative forms. Are there others that meet that aren't under Parks and Recreation or that are similar?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I want to pretend that I know all the information
Right.
associated with that, but essentially the facilities that you mentioned, Carrollwood and New Tampa performed, those are performing venues.
Uh-huh.
And so that's a different animal than a community center. So we have, I don't know how many of it, 15, 16 community centers that are all managed by county staff.
I see.
And so there's a differentiation only in types of use and the complexities associated with them. That's the only thing I could add at this point.
I just think it would be, I guess, I would like to have some more understanding about all of those places as well. We could look at this, but it just would seem to me that this is regions. What about regions?
I'm not familiar.
Okay. And I have no idea, but I'm just, maybe understanding more with regards to that. But I'll just, I can support looking at this, but I just don't want to be under, I want to understand if we're looking at one facility or what we do with the other facilities or how it works.
Okay, before I go to Commissioner Wostel, Commissioner Myers, question on the motion. Is it to approve B3, and then I know the county attorney described it as providing additional information to the board to, I guess, potentially transition to parks in October, but is that a fair characterization, or can you just also just...
Yeah, I would say it is fair. Commissioner Kemp, when you were calling out all the other Mosey and the region, they're not operated by the county's Park and Recreation Department. So I'm only talking and speaking of those facilities that are operated, like New Tampa, the Carrollwood Performing Arts, those are operated by our own Parks and Recreation Department. This is the only one that is not. And what the county is paying over the years to the UACDC, it should be a cost saving to our taxpayers in the county if we are operating our own facilities as we have done over the years with all the other Parks and Recreation Departments. And so what I'm asking the county attorneys to do is to bring back the information that I'm requesting and look at all the leases, agreements, and everything, and then we can have a more discussion when we have all of the information.
Okay, so the motion was Commissioner Myers. We have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner Wostel.
Yeah, I stated from last June, I'm going to support all these nonprofits through the 2024 budget. So it's really whatever Commissioner Myers wants. Do we have any other, I've negotiated lease agreements. Do we have any other lease agreement like this in Hillsborough County?
No, we do not.
How did this happen? And this is an important thing for everybody to hear. How did this specific, unique lease agreement come to life? Was it staff requesting it, or was it a county commissioner influencing staff's decisions?
Ron, I'll take it.
None of us were, I wasn't even here then, to show you how long ago this was.
I was here as county staff back in the day, and it was a commissioner who insisted how everything should be set up with the UACDC.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the way that, so this obviously was the one that stuck out to me the most when I did my 10-year deep dive. Absolutely nothing to do with the nonprofit itself. I would rate a nonprofit based off of did they have performance outcomes in the university area that has uniquely high crime. Did they solve it or not? Homelessness has persisted there. Crime has persisted there. We just had a developer say that they can't leave a back trail open because crime is still so bad there. So that's how I would argue whether or not we would continue to fund something. But more to my point is how they pre-baked the money and hid it into various different verticals, which is a lot of why I pushed so hard on my bullet points to make sure that all nonprofit to an organization was in one nonprofit budget, because none of us could have known, and these things are going back decades. I didn't even know about the lease, which is another intangible benefit to them. And then when we bring back, I'd like to know if we're paying the Arts History Museum to manage the building, or if we're just simply partners in helping build that facility and we own it and help on infrastructure. I think is huge distinctions to bring up something like them on if we're paying them another $250,000 a year to manage a building. I would be very interested to know on the organizational levels if this is the only one. I guess my point is that on the next item coming up, it's exactly why I believe that we need to really focus on whether our influence into making decisions on these flags, which this seems to be a bad actor outcome of from decades ago that, again, we didn't know of because we have a complete lack of transparency and accountability in the process. So I'll leave it there, and I'll support whatever, as long as I promised I wouldn't do anything to the nonprofits budget. That was my promise when I made my motion back on June the 7th, and as long as we're not affecting them on fiscal year 24 like I promised, I'll support it.
Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you. And Commissioner Wastel, I agree with you. I think that it is, I don't want to be supporting something that pulls out the rug from any organization in the middle of the budget year. But my view is that when a commissioner, particularly a district commissioner, asks for additional information regarding any program in their district and any expenditure, that we ought to give great deference to that and ask for that information to come back. For that reason, I'm going to support the motion. I also am supporting it because, as you pointed out, Commissioner Wastel, at least to my understanding, it deals with this year, and then what you're asking for is information for how we move forward. You know, I think it's important in asking for information that we not prejudge what we're going to see. And I will say that I don't know how any of us can really answer for how these decisions were made 30 years ago. And I don't want to jump to the conclusion right off the bat that something inappropriate happened here. I think that it's appropriate to get more information, and then we can make a decision moving forward as to whether or not the current structure works or it doesn't work. And if, in fact, it makes more sense to have county parks overseeing it, when we get the information, we can make that decision for next year.
Okay, and I'll just add in, I completely agree. I think Commissioner Cohen hit the nail squarely on the head. I'm always going to support Commissioner getting additional information. Certainly, if this can be a savings, I would certainly support it. One thing I would point out, because there are a couple references to our most recent facility, New Tampa Performing Arts Center, and we had an earnest debate, or several debates then, about who would operate it, and we considered a couple of private sector organizations. At the end of the day, we landed with county staff. So we'll see if the same situation happens here, but just wanted to point that out. So got a motion by Commissioner Myers, second Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thanks, Ron. Monty, next item.
The next item is, I was hoping when I set it for 10:45 that I would have at the end of the agenda and I would be able to get the rest of the regular agenda items beforehand, but here we are. So this is item B4, to approve a new board policy entitled Nonprofit Funding Guidelines. And Tom Fessler is here to present this item. He does have a short PowerPoint.
Before we go to that,
sure.
I didn't discuss B3.
That was B3.
Oh, I thought that was
We included
B3.
approving.
They did it all together.
No, but I have a separate motion that I wanted, well, I need
another
to
one.
add, yes.
Oh, another one.
Okay,
Sorry.
can we have a motion to reconsider our last item? Can we have a motion? Motion, Commissioner Wostel, second Commissioner Owen. This is to reconsider the last item. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, so you want to do those? You want to do those separately?
No, I wanted to do it together, but I want to not just highlight something on, B3 is with the UACDC, one of the things I've been talking with them about is becoming more self-sustaining. They constantly ask the county for large sums of funding throughout the years, and I would like to see, and my motion is to decrease the $750,000 to $500,000 beginning October 1, 2024, 2025 fiscal year. One of the things, as I talk with nonprofits, after 5 years, you should become self-sustainable and not asking the county for a large sum of funding. And I think last year we spent about anywhere from over 500 to $1 million for splash pad. Just since I've been the commissioner, we're not doing the same for other nonprofits in my district. And I keep getting a lot of comments from nonprofits in my district that why can't we all be treated the same, or the funding level is the same. So as we move forward, that is my motion for October 1, 2024, 2025 fiscal year, is to decrease the funding to UACDC.
Okay, Bonnie, do you or staff have any comments on that?
No, that's okay. We just want to be very clear. So it's approving B3. However, for fiscal year 25, you're suggesting that number go to $500,000 instead, just to be very clear.
Yes.
Okay, then a motion by Commissioner Myers. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Owen. Commissioner Wosel?
I'm not ready to start deliberating and setting our budget for fiscal year 25. It goes against everything that I will cover, I guess, again, in my next item. So for that reason, I won't support it now.
Commissioner Kemp?
Yes, and again, I appreciate, and I was going to always support the questions. I just wasn't sure about the premise of it being the only place. And so I was trying to get clarification on that to understand the broad scope of this. But I also feel like we're not, I don't know what that $750,000 is for. And I think it's I mean, we got this presentation, but I'd like to understand more about that separately and specifically before I supported an overall cut.
Okay, so this motion is solely to approve. Why don't we separate it out if you don't have a problem with that? Why don't we approve B3 and then the next motion could be for fiscal year 25? Because I think we have unanimous support for B3, but that may not even pass the way it is, right? The way you've crafted.
Okay,
is that okay?
Yes, we can separate.
All right, so the motion is to B3 as stated by Commissioner Myers, second Commissioner Owen. Please record your vote on B3.
I'm sorry. Can I just have a point of clarification? So we're re-voting on the same thing we just...
No, this is just B3 as stated, not what we voted on before.
Oh, okay.
Motion carried 5-2. Commissioners Cameron, Cepeda, and Wostel voted no.
Okay, then for fiscal year 25.
Yes, it's to reduce the funding from $750,000 to $500,000.
Okay. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Commissioner Owen. Commissioner Cohen?
So just to understand this, if this were to pass, the base in the administrator's budget would go from 750 to 500, but it wouldn't prevent the board between now and when the budget gets passed to adjusting it upward or downward, depending on what the conversations show when we get the information back, correct?
Right.
So, I mean, you know, I don't particularly like the idea of preempting this, but on the other hand, it's not a final decision now whether we make it or not. And, you know, clearly from the conversation, the CDC is now on notice that the board is going to be looking closely at their funding. I wonder if we couldn't perhaps just table this until we get the information back that Commissioner Myers requested, and it could come back to the board relatively quickly, I would think.
It can be tabled. I will support that till we get all the information back. We can table it.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen.
Commissioner Wosel?
Well, if we're tabling it, then I guess it's irrelevant at this point. Then, so I'll.
Okay, we still need a motion now to go back to the original, have the information come back regarding potentially transitioning to county parks and rec. So. That'd be a
Direct the
motion.
county attorneys, okay, let me
that's-
go back to my motion. You want to read it in entirety? Well, I'm just going to direct the county attorney's office to look at all the lease agreements with the UACDC and then bring back a report to this board.
Second.
Okay, so that was Commissioner Myers' intent on the original motion a few minutes ago. So motion Commissioner Myers, second Commissioner Cohen. No other comments. Please record your vote.
Okay. Thanks.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, thank you. All right, Tom, now you're up.
Morning, Commissioners. Tom Fessler, Chief Financial Administrator. Item B4 is asking the board to vote on and adopt a new policy on nonprofit funding guidelines. I did have a very short presentation to run through just to give the board a reminder of what's included in the policy. We had come back to the board last year with a report on nonprofit organizations that just kind of gave some general information. So this slide just kind of reiterates some of that, which over the past 10 years, the board has provided about $225 million of general fund dollars to nonprofit organizations. In fiscal year 23, that budget was approximately $15 million for over 100 nonprofit organizations. And historically, those contributions to the nonprofits have been for things such as one-time capital purchases, and the recurring agreements we have in place are for some operating outcomes that the board is investing in. We do monitor those nonprofit organizations on an annual basis, so there is accountability that goes along with it. Back on June 7th, the board voted on some new guidelines for nonprofits at a board meeting. With the item that I'm bringing forward today basically takes those same guidelines and puts them in a policy format, which was requested by the board back in December. Real quickly, I'll run over what those guidelines are and what's included in the policy. The first one is to begin receiving IRS tax form 990s from the nonprofit organizations on an annual basis. These are basically would identify the financial situation for each nonprofit. There was a guideline that related to providing for a 30% cap on county funding to an organization, and I say 30% cap, that's 30% of their revenues on an annual basis. Our award would not be able to be any more than that. Also, we are requesting, or the board, one of the guidelines is for, as items come back to the board for consideration, that the board receive a proposal ahead of time. So in other words, if we're going through our budget process, over the past few years, there might have been some items that were flagged at the last minute without a proposal. So that guideline would just require that the board have some information before they're voting on funding for an organization. As Commissioner Wostel stated earlier, the board did vote that this new policy, when it goes into effect, will be on 10/1 of 2024, so fiscal year 25, and not affect current year contracts. There's another requirement in there for the board or the county not to fund organizations that have either a CEO or an employee or a board member that has an annual compensation of over $200,000. The policy does also restrict the county administrator's authority to change nonprofit funding levels or make awards to new nonprofit organizations. Also, in order to gain some additional transparency, the policy requires that general fund funded nonprofits all be shown in one area within the annual budget document. And then finally, the last requirement is for the board to identify core services, core county services, and that we would only fund nonprofits for providing a core service that is defined by the county.
Excuse me, Tom, you might want to change your slide.
Oh, sorry.
Other way.
Other way, sorry. Commissioners, also, from what was adopted back in June, we did take a look at, the guidelines that were approved by the board. There are only two slight changes to what was approved back in June that's included in the proposed policy. One of them would be that anything that would run through our normal procurement cycle, through our procurement office, so we do an RFP or a bid, we go out to the community, we make an award because we're going out to the community looking for a given good or service, we're saying that we believe should be exempted from the policy because we have our own separate policies related to our procurement office, and also state laws might be involved also. And then we did tighten up a little bit on the county administrator's authority under the policy. As it was adopted, it was that the county administrator couldn't make any changes in the recommended budget. What we're saying is the county administrator can't make any changes, and that any change adding a nonprofit or increasing funding would have to be through the board, a board request. This policy is applicable only to general funds or property taxes that are awarded to nonprofit organizations. We took a look at some potential impacts from implementing the policy, so I won't read through all of these, but we do have some board-approved programs that make awards to various nonprofit organizations. So we just wanted to identify for the board in this case that each of these programs generally has their own separate, it's either a policy in place or an application process to make awards to nonprofits. So we just wanted to point out that the policy as it stands now would apply to these various programs, so that if a given award is recommended per the policy guideline, not the policy, the program guidelines, that those awards could be affected by the policy. And then just some further considerations. As you can see there, again, I won't read through all of these, but you know, the board still has not defined core services yet, so that could have an impact. One of the things that we did include in the package that went to the board, we have been reviewing over the past several months what the funding changes would be for individual nonprofit organizations based on an initial review of information that we've collected from them. So that was part of the backup to that went out as it relates to the meeting today. So just wanted to point that out. And as you can see, there are some potentially, we have a sponsorship policy. There's something in there that provides flexibility of the county administrator to make sponsorship awards under $5,000. That's something that would be affected by the policy, and some other things like that. So we just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of those things before they vote today. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
All right, thanks, Tom. Commissioner Wilstel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to let everybody else speak, but I want to take some things off the top that don't even really need to hear debate about. I think that they should be removed because there's redundancies that are in there. Specifically, it's the salary cap on the second bullet point. I believe that the percentage of how much we're willing to fund with, and I will point out to the public specifically, I'm only talking about property taxes again today, not all of the other many different funding sources that come through the county and go to nonprofits. I believe that the 30% rule on bullet point 3 precludes the need for the $200,000 salary. So unless it's somebody else had a passion for having that in there, just so the general public understands why I even put that in there, that's because an organization that had a CEO making $1.5 million a year received your taxes, and I personally find that offensive. I don't find the organization offensive, I just find that practice and behavior offensive to the taxpayers. So that's why I had put that in there. I would say that the 30% rule kind of gets me to that mark. I do believe that elected officials should probably strive not to award organizations that are paying one individual over $1 million a year, but I'm willing to concede that I might be wrong on that topic. Beyond that, I'll wait and listen to what everybody has to say so I don't repeat too much of what I said last June.
Commissioner Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, I think that's well said. I think with some of these nonprofits, some of these are really large nonprofits, larger than others, that do a lot of good in the community. So I would agree with that, Commissioner Wostel, to remove that portion. I guess one of my questions would be for, the core services part. I think that's going to have to be in some way defined, which, obviously to me, core services sound like public safety, crisis, things like that. Do we have an idea of how we're going to handle that? I know you kind of alluded, I think the answer is no right now.
Commissioner, one potential option for that would be to just address that through the annual budget process.
And that's what I think. I mean, I would say we task, Ms. Wise with that responsibility, because it's a proposal, just like the whole budget is a proposal to us. And if there's anything that we may disagree with the county administrator on, we would have the option to remove that. So I think that would probably be a good starting point, is let the county administrator through the budget propose it just like she proposes a budget, and then we can debate over what we think is core. And then probably after a couple years, we'll have a good determination of what those core services are. One of the other things, and again, Commissioner Whistle, thank you for bringing this initiative. I think it's been so eye-opening to me as a commissioner to see how business as usual has been done. And I know we don't really address this here. This is for probably a different time, my comments on just reoccurring in general. A lot of these are reoccurring from commissioners long before 2018, 15, 10, correct? They go way, way back. If you would
That's correct, Commissioner. We did go back. There was a request to go back and take a look at flagged items, back on the ones that are there, and look at who had originally flagged them. We could go back to about 2018, but before that, the documentation just gets very fuzzy, and it's difficult to tell.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting that we're approving flag items from commissioners we don't even know who they are. From a period of time we don't really, I'm sure we could find out, but I appreciate all your assistance in trying to determine that, because for me, that's very important to know that there may be some commissioners who didn't get a second term, and maybe because of wasteful spending could have been a purpose, and we're continuing to fund and budget for their flag items. So I think it's really critical. And Ms. Wise, if you could just comment, this board now, we don't have that option, correct? Is that safe to say that when we're now flagging items, can we make reoccurring or not? I think it's good for the public to know.
Right. I think you all have made it very clear that your flags were one-time flags.
Right, right. And I think that is critically important for the taxpayer and for the voters of Hillsborough County to state that, hey, we've elected you in the office. Whether or not we should flag or not, that's an argument for another day. But the fact that we have county commissioners from 20, 15 years ago, there are programs that when I look at the items, sometimes I don't even know what they do by their names. So I think it's very critical. Again, thank you for bringing that, and why this is important. We have so many needs in Hillsborough County. Not-for-profits are so important. They're the heart of our community. I'm a big fan of making sure our not-for-profits are working. They're the heart. Your small businesses are the backbone, and the churches are the soul of your community. You need all three of those working together. But at the same time, we've got roads. I have serious public safety concerns in my side of town when it comes to fire stations, and we've got to start reprioritizing. I think this is kind of a first step. So thank you, Commissioner Whistle, for bringing it. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Owen. I don't see anyone else in the queue, so I got a few comments I want to make. I want to first of all thank Commissioner Whistle for highlighting the need to have a nonprofit policy that provides transparency, accountability, and one that strengthens our reporting and our process requirements. I think there are areas where the board may disagree, but I also think that we can agree that most of the guidelines are common sense and needed. I also want to thank staff for all their work on this issue, especially you, Tom. I know they've spent a ton of time researching and working on this policy, so I appreciate everything you guys have done to get us to this point here today. I got to tell you, this issue's really been weighing on my mind. In fact, 2 times over the last week, I've woken up in the middle of the night thinking about nonprofits, and this is not even my issue. In fact, over the years, I've not championed, we're discussing who funded what or who flagged what, but I haven't championed many nonprofits over the years. For example, of the list that we were provided by staff, there's 104. I'm responsible for 5. Which is 5% of the total number and less than 4.5% of our total nonprofit funding. Yet I cannot think of another issue that I've spent so much time on. As Tom indicated, we're talking about $15 million, which is roughly 1% of our general revenue. Is that right?
That's correct.
As Commissioner Wostel stated earlier this morning, $15 million is a lot of money, but I also think it does put things into perspective when you consider the needs that are addressed and the services that are provided for so many. I think essentially it's the argument Commissioner Cohen made, the ROI argument he made during our affordable housing impact fee relief discussion. And if we eliminated the compensation guideline that Commissioner Wostel stated, now we're talking about a little bit over 11 million, down from 15. So, I mean, I've gone round and round on this, probably had 24 meetings over the last several months with staff and nonprofits in an effort to craft a policy that addresses needed improvements while not negatively impacting worthwhile organizations. I know in the years past, we have had challenges with nonprofits. Some of them have been discussed today. That's why when this was initially presented back last June, although if you recall, we were not provided any information or backup in advance of the board meeting, I still supported moving forward with it. I agree that improvements need to be made. And as I stated earlier, I'll nearly always support a commissioner when he or she requests information or wants to pursue a policy or initiative. Doesn't mean I'll always support the finished product, but I think as a courtesy, I feel strongly we should allow them to get additional information. As I analyze the funding guidelines, many of them are well thought out and valuable, particularly the ones providing increased transparency and additional reporting requirements. Many of these should have been implemented a long time ago. Things such as the requiring the 990, nonprofits shall provide information identifying all funding sources, the increased, nonprofit proposal for new or increased or scope change in funding must be supported by a written funding proposal. In the past, if a commissioner wanted to flag an item, we don't know what in the heck it's for, have no idea, get 4 votes, it's approved. We should have a written proposal. I also agree with the county administrator may not propose new or increased or scope change. It must be board initiated. Again, Commissioner Wilson's harped on this. I think each should be included in the nonprofit section. That's been a challenge in years past where there have been organizations receiving funding from multiple sources and staff doesn't even know all of them that exist. Additionally, what I would like to see added, although as Bonnie said, we've kind of made it a practice, but I think it probably should be memorialized in the policy that all future nonprofit awards are one time. I think that should be added. But when you consider the depth and impact to so many nonprofits, even with the 30% guideline, I cannot get there on that. I do appreciate Commissioner Myers asking for this to come back so we can formally approve a policy. This issue's been lingering since last June, and we're going to start work on the fiscal year 25 budget here fairly soon. But I would suggest that there are still unanswered questions and significant considerations with other elements of the policy. We know about the compensation issues that happen there. I'll give you an example. The 30% guideline, I think, and staff will tell you this, it severely impacts many smaller nonprofits. For example, the 2 nonprofits that Commissioner Cameron Cepeda championed last year, which just coincidentally we approved today, I mean, that's a coincidence, those would not qualify under this existing policy. So if there were future ones similar to that Commissioner Cameron Cepeda wanted to consider funding, we would not be able to do that under this policy. As Tom indicated, there are board programs and policies that be impacted. The whole core service, I'm not going to say it's impossible to define, but it means different things to different people. And unless that definition is so extremely narrow, there's going to be a ton of gray area, and inevitably almost every one of these could probably make the argument to fall into one of the categories. So while I hadn't thought about it, I do like the idea of having that during the budget process. I think that makes sense as a starting point on that to try and help define that. But as is, so many exemptions would need to be either made or at least strongly considered, such as a nonprofit works out of a county-owned facility. That's Mosey. Nonprofit provides a unique critical service in the community, or the only one that provides a service, crisis center. Nonprofit that works in partnership with the county department to deliver services, Humane Society, Feeding Tampa Bay. A nonprofit that provides service that the county would otherwise have to provide, Crisis Center, THHI, Sports Commission. So I could go on and on. Of the 104 listed here, admittedly, I'm sure there are some that I agree should be reduced or eliminated. However, as is, I think there are too many unresolved issues and exemptions or exceptions that would likely have to be made today or during the budget process once these organizations learn that their funding had been reduced or eliminated. And I'm convinced most of these really have no idea. I mean, they may have heard along the line over the last 6-8 months that we're having nonprofit discussion, but I don't believe most of these even are aware that their funding could be, eliminated or significantly reduced today. And I'll give you 2 examples. Over the last week, I was meeting with, Rob Higgins, the Sports Commission, and Craig Richard, EDC, on different issues unrelated to this. Neither one of them had any idea that their funding would be reduced by approving this. I mean, any one of these organizations, if they were aware, a simple call to action in this room would have been filled. Of course, I didn't do that, but that would have been the case. And I can tell you from experience, I've going through a number of budget reconciliation and budget public hearings. That's what has inevitably happened, or would happen, because it's happened in the past. I also want to point out that while the funding for many of these nonprofits are recurring, that doesn't necessarily mean it's permanent. I mean, we can make, as Commissioner Cohen just stated, changes to these nonprofit funding levels at any time. This is a policy. It's not an ordinance. And evidenced by Commissioner Myers, the discussion we just had on the UACDC. So that discussion can happen any time. But I suggest that if there are specific nonprofits that we do want to consider changing, that we do that in advance, not today, but we do that in advance of the county administrator presenting her recommended budget. So then we're not removing an organization out of the budget, and then they will also have time to plan accordingly should a change be made. So where I'm landing on is approving the policy, but eliminating the core service requirement, the compensation, and the 30%, and adding in that all nonprofit funding would be one time. So that's kind of where I'm at. I see, okay, Commissioner Kemp, Commissioner Myers in the queue, but so we'll just see where it lands. Commissioner Kemp.
Yes, and I do think we needed to bring this forward and look at it. I especially, even in the initial discussion, was just kind of taken that every group wasn't bringing a 990 forward. I didn't even, but I thought when we were first hit with this, we weren't even given copies of it ahead of time. We didn't even know, what this long list was. And I was, at that time, not going to approve it without understanding more. So I'm glad to have those brought forward. By the way, I was trying to press my button and it didn't quite go before you spoke, Commissioner Hagan, but I totally agree and was going to make, especially the 2 points you made, $200,000 for some of these jobs that are nationally competitive markets and things like that would really compromise our ability to hire staff or have these organizations. So I totally agree with you in terms of the compensation. The other is the 30%, and I think that would really hit the smaller not-for-profits really hard. And it would also, though, disadvantage us. Like I was trying to get sometimes the state funds some of these and they look to our local support for them, our local oversight, our local affirmation that they're on the ground doing well. And we can bring down and match state dollars, sometimes federal dollars for these not-for-profits to increase capacity and help and do service in Hillsborough County. And we would disadvantage ourselves with every other county in the state of Florida if we said 30% was your total. So even if you get, let's say, I in particular was talking to a small not-for-profit, and I said, yeah, you should be looking at getting other matching from the city, for instance. And, you know, but now it would be, if we pass this, that wouldn't matter in increasing their capacity and getting match and buy-in. And that would be really a disservice to our not-for-profits here. But I appreciate all the as you outlined it, Commissioner Hagan, and so you didn't pass the gavel, but I'll make a motion with regards to how you outline that, Commissioner Hagan, in terms of moving forward with this policy.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kemp. Do we have a second, Commissioner Cohen? Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only have concerns the 30%. And when I look at the report, and when I look at this year, we just had the Dr. Martin Luther King parade. And when we look at what they will be receiving in 2025, they won't be able to host a parade. Am I correct, Bonnie?
Right, that would have been reduced. That would have applied it. I think that was part of the motion, was to eliminate that provision.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, my hearing, I didn't get that. So one of the things I'm just going to suggest, because it is just so unfair, and I do agree with you, Commissioner Hagan, the room would have been packed today if everyone knew that we were going to discuss these items, to come in, make some type of comment in reference to what we're discussing right now. So I wonder if we could either table this till we get to the budget and go full force talking about this and the dollar amounts, because when we look at one-time funding, if we fund someone in 2025, does that mean we cannot fund them for fiscal year 25-26? If it's coming from a commissioner. So, I mean, there's a lot of things I was thinking about when we say one time. Is it only that? Or if the commissioner has the opportunity to come back the following fiscal year and bring back that same nonprofit again?
It's my understanding that the same commissioner or different commissioner can bring it up every year.
Okay.
It's just not placed in the budget to be recurring, and we would have to vote on it every year, providing that transparency and that everyone knows, hey, we're going to vote on it. But it doesn't prevent that from happening. It just prevents it from getting baked into the yearly budget every year, which is one of the things I think most of us, if not all of us, agree we want to try and prevent.
Stop the recurrency. Okay.
So, Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you very much. You know, when this originally came up, I wanted to bifurcate the votes on the different points in the originally proposed policy, because I do believe that some of these reforms are very well thought out and a good idea, and will increase accountability and transparency, you know, and make sure that we know exactly what we're funding every year. I think that's totally reasonable. The accountability provisions of it are also totally reasonable. But I generally concur with Commissioner Hagan's framework of the difficulties, particularly with the $200,000 cap and the 30% rule. I would also add that in the course of the last few weeks, I've been reached out to by a few nonprofits that actually are taking issue with some of the factual underpinnings here and feel that they're either don't belong on these lists, or but for a very, very quick clerical exercise could be taken off of it. So one thing I do want to mention is that however this goes forward, I would like to give everybody at least 30 days if there's paperwork that hasn't been turned in or issues that need to be clarified, that we can make sure that the lists are accurate. There were some organizations that had specific issues. I want to just go back very briefly to one thing Commissioner Hagan said, and that this is a policy and not an ordinance. And that means that at the end of the day, regardless of what we decide to do here, the individual budget decisions that get made for next year's budget and for the year after that will be made by a vote of this board. And when people have come to me in the past and requested funding that goes more than one fiscal year, I consistently remind them that nobody can bind a future board. Every year, the board is going to have to vote individually on everything that we spend. And if these things are in the county administrator's budget, then we can decide whether to keep them there. And if they're not in the county administrator's budget, we can decide whether or not to put them back in. And, you know, I am happy to tighten the policy, but at the end of the day, we will make these decisions on a case-by-case basis because that's how our budget process really works. And in terms of the flags and whether or not the policy applies to them or not, I would submit to you, it's up to the board whether or not the policy applies or not. If you want to override the policy, it'll take 4 votes to do it. If not, it'll get squashed. And that's the bottom line of it. So I'm happy to support the motion, but I just recognize, and I think everyone should recognize, that until we pass next year's budget, this is really guidance, because every one of us is going to make our votes, and these things are all going to eventually be decided on their merits with an up or down vote of the board.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilstall?
I actually do believe that a commissioner should be able to make a flag, frankly. I just find it quite offensive that we're bound from all of our many dire needs today by the actions of past commissioners while we speak out of one side of the mouth and say that it's not permanent. In fact, the moment that we put it on the county administrator for it to be in there, it's going to be in there until she's told not to put it in there. She's not going to recommend a budget to us with two decades of past commissioners' decision at her seat and attempt to override us. It's an impossible position to even place her in or suggest that us not taking it out and saying that we deserve all of the funds that are available for us today to prevent, I don't know, the infant that had a loss of life and her mother being willed in here in a cervical collar because we can't get our act together and prioritize our funding to public safety, or if Commissioner Smeda wants the most amount of money possible to combat all of our extremely bad human trafficking needs down in Waimama, all of the illegals that are being sexually assaulted and uncomfortable to even approach law enforcement, she should have all of the money that's available to her for her to fight for that included in the available funds and not pre-bound in an impossible position by the actions of commissioners from 2 decades ago that we prove today we can't even identify who did it. That's where we're at today. We are at our simple inability to take real action that could create real positive change for all of the dire needs that are going on in Hillsborough County, is that we will not identify all of the funds that should be available to us for all of our modern day needs because of the needs from commissioners from decades ago. Nothing more, nothing less. I would be willing, Chair, to throw out this entire policy if right now you would concede that we should remove all of these and make them available funds in future budgets, and that we should have open discourse on identifying where they are. Because if we're not willing to do that, then we are making them permanent and we're allowing the past actions of commissioners to bind us going forward. Now, if it is a 30% policy that is such the big deal, I don't know one person that believes that the government is in the business of doing startup funding other than an SBA loan. We should require that they go out there and get their own donations and prove to us that they are working hard for their money and that they're going to work hard for the Hillsborough taxpayers' money. But that's not what we did. And now we do not have the willpower to say we didn't require it from you then, and now, yes, we're uncomfortable to take it from you now. So we've created basically an extension of government. Let's just call it what it is. And these are not small sums of money. These are sums of money that the Van Dyke expansion, done, $250 million. If it would have been done on the original quotes. Lithia Pinecrest on the original quotes, done, $250 million. But pre-binding money in this cumulative way is how we've got to where we are, and we will continue to be where we are unless we decide to do the impossible, which none of us are, I believe, going to get a consensus on this board, which is to increase people's taxes. And I'll yield.
Commissioner Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess what we need to do now is kind of narrow it down to what we're talking about, because it sounds like we agree on removing the salary provision, and we've added, to allude to what Commissioner Wosel said, and I think he's 100% right, on the reoccurring. Because I know, Commissioner Cohen, what you said is a future board cannot be bound, but it sure looks like we have been when you look at the budget over a long period of time of approving all of these reoccurring. So, and I'll also address, in a lot of instances where the room is packed, sometimes that throws up lots of red flags for me. When I see a packed room and I start getting all these duplicate emails, I would honestly say 9 out of 10 times when these rooms are packed on an issue, it is not the majority of what Hillsborough County voters want. It is activism, which I think is great, but it is not the will of the majority of the people in Hillsborough County. It's the will of the few. So, and I understand, listen, these not-for-profits, they are extremely important, like I alluded to before. But the percentage part is what I think is what we're arguing about right now. I want to make sure that if every commissioner wants to really quickly weigh in, that what we're talking about now is we're adding that there's no reoccurring. Is that, Commissioner Cohen, is that what you have added that into this? Well, it's Commissioner Kemp's motion, but.
My understanding of Commissioner Kemp's motion was the guidelines as stated in the backup, however, removing the total compensation threshold, removing the 30% of total nonprofits, of nonprofits' total revenues, removing the core function issue, because we're going to address that during the budget, and then we're adding in that all future nonprofit awards are one time.
Okay, and I guess what I'm nervous about, and I know it's a hard metrics, is just removing altogether any type of percentage where not-for-profit does become a creature of the government and really good lobbying and going to your state legislature, your local government, and the federal government and finding ways to get funding, which I don't fault them for. I would do the same thing if I was working for that particular not-for-profit. So I guess, Commissioner Wostel, I'd like to get your opinion on removing that percentage, or if there's another type of percentage marker that would be amenable, because you're the one who brought this, so.
We just have to decide if we're going to be in the business of startups or not. The reason that I support commissioners, even though we have a policy that's never been waived and has been violated even last budget season, a couple of them I brought to Bonnie. We require a waiver of policies on everything else, but not those. We're not supposed to be earmarking funds, actually. But as Commissioner Cohen has stated repeatedly, why have rules when you're not willing to follow them? And I do believe that a commissioner should be able to come in here and fight for something that they believe in their eyes, as Commissioner Hagan has said, he's probably right, is that it's, while embarrassing, well, it's not embarrassing for me as a libertarian. I think it's the proof of government. We can't even define to our taxpayers what we believe we're supposed to be doing for them, right? We can't, as a body, sit here and come to that conclusion. So I concede that the core value should be removed. He might find his sports facilities more important than what I want or what Commissioner Cepeda wants, and you might find what you to be more of a priority for core values than what I believe. And I agree that that's factual. But as far as the percentage go, I mean, we have to sit here and decide as a board, is the Hillsborough County government a startup fund for businesses? Is that what we are? Because by removing the percentage, that's what we're saying. By adding a small percentage, we're saying, hey, you need to go and you need to do fundraising yourself, unless we're going to make it all a match, which I don't believe we could get to a consensus on either. But to remove the percentage requirement entirely, I think completely obfuscates the nonprofit's responsibility to go and do their own fundraising. If not, what we're promoting just endless startups of fundraisers in here. So I don't know what the right number is. If it's that we can't be more than a lower or higher number, I don't know.
Commissioner Cohen?
You know, I just think that it's very difficult to define a one-size-fits-all policy that covers every eventuality. And the bottom line is there might be situations, I would submit to you there are, where it is appropriate for us to pay the full freight at the beginning if there's a service being provided that this board, by 4 votes, decides is worthy of funding. And you know, I don't think it's a problem that we can't define the core services, because all of us were elected with different ideas about what our role should be. And I think that's actually the beauty of our system, is that we get to come up here and hash it out. And if we need to do that for every nonprofit that gets funded through the budget cycle, I think we should have at it. We are not under an obligation to approve something just because it's been funded in the past. We may do that, and in many cases, that might be the easy way out. It might be the lazy way out. But we're under no obligation to do business that way. We can argue the merits, I think, of every expenditure and see where the votes fall. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, you know, again, I'm happy to support some tightening up of our policies, but at the end of the day, whatever the policy is, it's still going to come down to what 4 people on this board think is deserving of funding or not.
And before I call on Commissioner Myers, I would just say that I agree with both Commissioner Wolster and Commissioner Cohen in that I do agree that past board actions somewhat bind this board, which I believe is essentially what Commissioner Wolster said. But at the same time, what you just indicated, Commissioner Cohen, we can change it at any time, and we just had that discussion an hour ago on the UACDC. So just because they've been in the budget for decades doesn't mean changes can't be made. And Commissioner Myers had it, you know, wanted additional information, wants to have that discussion. Well, we're having that discussion, and that's on this list. It's one of the ones listed on our nonprofit list. Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to call for the vote on this item. We have a motion. I'm calling for the vote.
Okay, that ceases all debate. The motion, again, let me restate that, or my understanding of the motion, Commissioner Kemp, is the guidelines that are in the listed in our backup, with the exception of the total compensation, 30% threshold, and the core county center, or the core county function, adding in the all future nonprofits are one time. And then the last thing, I think it's implicitly understood, but I think perhaps we should identify it that current board programs and policies in place are exempt. So I think staff prefers that to be memorialized. Okay, so the motion is by Commissioner Kemp, second Commissioner Cohen. Please cast your vote.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Cameron, Cepeda, Owen, and Wostel voted no.
Okay. Next item, Bonnie.
The next item is a board appointment. This is your appointment to the Public Art Committee. And I'm not sure if Glenda's doing that, or Rick, if you're doing that. If she's not there, we can move to Commissioner Hagan's item F2.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
make a point about the last vote. I'm just,
Quickly,
not to have a vote, but to notify, can we notify everyone, every single one of these not-for-profits or anyone affected by this policy, and let them know, to your point, Commissioner Hagan, that the groups that you spoke to, and I know others, aren't informed. And so just to kind of let them know what, maybe you already have, I'm not sure, but to let them know what is here.
Yeah,
We can do
that's
that.
reasonable. Okay.
Item F1.
Glenda, you ready? You got big shoes to fill.
Good morning, Commissioners. Now, sorry. Okay, so today we have the Public Art Committee for appointments. We have 3 applicants and 2 positions are open. With that, each commissioner will choose 2. Commissioner Hagan,
Lee and Vandergroep.
okay. Commissioner Owen,
Williams and Lee.
Commissioner Cepeda,
Lee and Vandergroup.
Commissioner Cohen,
Lee and Vander.
Commissioner Myers,
Williams and Vandergroup.
Commissioner Kemp,
Lee and Williams.
okay. Commissioner Wustel,
Williams and Lee.
okay. So we have Benjamin Lee and Cynthia Van de Groot. Should we have a motion to?
Motion to confirm.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Commissioner Cohen, second Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. Next item.
Next item, Chair Hagan, is your item, item F2, regarding the 2024 canvassing board.
All right, thank you. Mary Helen, you want to briefly describe why we're here?
Mary Helen Ferris with the County Attorney's Office. The Florida statute defines a canvassing board as the supervisor of elections, the chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and a county judge. The statute further says that a person can't be on the canvassing board if they are on the ballot of the election being canvassed, if they have opposition, or if they're an active participant in a campaign. And the agenda item lists what the Division of Elections deemed as active participant. It's basically public support of a candidate. So the chair is unable to serve, so this item is just to seek the board's selection of a substitute.
Good job. Thank you. It's my understanding that Commissioner Cameron Cepeda may be interested in serving as a member, but we also need an alternate. Is that correct, Commissioner Cameron Cepeda? Okay. And so do we have someone that's willing or is, I should say qualified, but is allowed to be an alternate? It somewhat gets you out of endorsing anybody.
My understanding, though, is that and I would ask the county attorney this, that anybody who's already pledged support to a candidate in this cycle is effectively prohibited from serving. Correct. So I think unless there's anybody in that category, I would think we're all precluded.
And that would be fine because in the past, there's been numerous election cycles where there was no commissioner. And what we did is I took the vote of the commission, met with the chief judge, and he appoints another judge as a substitute or as the alternate. So that's another way we can go.
Okay. So if we can just have a motion for Commissioner Cameron Cepeda to serve as the canvassing board member, and well, hopefully we won't need an alternate. So
looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Motion. Thank you for being willing to serve on this. So motion, Commissioner Owen, second Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. Next item.
Thank you. The next 2 items are Commissioner Owen's item. First one is item F3, relating to large-scale events near residential properties.
Commissioner Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, I know the board is probably very familiar with the agritourism statute that's in place. And just like any statute, whenever things are kind of left open, vague, and a little bit broad, there's folks that take advantage of this. And in my district, we're having a lot of large-scale events that are more like concerts, that are not, in my opinion, the purpose of agritourism. I'm a big fan of agritourism, for the record. I think it's a great thing, especially for my district with all the farmers and agriculture community. But in this instance, or many instances that I'm seeing in my district, there are a lot of folks that are putting on basically concerts that look like they should go on in the amphitheater. So what this does is it directs our staff to work with code enforcement, the fire marshal, the sheriff's office, so that we can take appropriate legal and code enforcement action for these type of large-scale events. It also directs the county attorney's office and appropriate staff to review and advise whether an ordinance supplementing state law related to agritourism would be helpful to mitigate the off-site impacts related to these large events. So I think it's very important. We obviously have a little dance we have to do because of state law and being preempted, but it's my understanding that we do have some authority to create an ordinance, and this is kicking the tires so that we can begin that process. Thank you. And I'll move for approval.
Okay, so we got a motion by Commissioner Owen. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Wostel. No comments. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
F4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In case commissioners are wondering why I'm wanting to update the Riverview plan, the reason is because of the unanimous decision we made for the Leroy Selman Expressway extension. The Riverview plan never contemplated a flyover for the Leroy Selman. So there may be some things that are conflicting. The THEA and FDOT are going to be having organizational events that are going to be inviting the public. What I would like to do in conjunction with that is have the Riverview plan hopefully updated so that it will work in symbionts with the potential of the Leroy Selman Expressway extension. So that is the purpose of F4. It's for us to update the plan because obviously the Leroy Selman extension to Big Bend, Bloomingdale, and Gibsonton Drive probably wasn't contemplated at that time. So that's my motion. Thank you.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Owen. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Wostel. No comments. Please record your vote. F4.
Commissioner Wostel. Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, before we go, we do have A8, but before we do that, it's my understanding we have to reconsider F1, that two of them actually tied. So can we have a motion to reconsider the board appointments? Motion, Commissioner Wostel. Second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote on reconsideration.
Commissioner Myers. Motion carried 7-0.
All right, so I guess the bottom two, Cynthia Vandergrope and Ms. Williams, tied. So we need to select one of those. Is that correct?
That is correct. We will need to vote again to select one. So Commissioner Hagan,
Well, Williams.
Commissioner Owen,
Williams.
Commissioner Cepeda,
Vandergroot.
Commissioner Cohen,
Vandergroot.
Commissioner Myers,
Williams.
Commissioner Kemp, Commissioner Wostel.
Vandergroup.
So we have Atisha Williams as the other member.
Okay. Now, motion to confirm. Motion, Commissioner Kemp, second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. A8, is that the next one?
A8 was one item that was pulled from consent by Commissioner Wostel relating to Eli property.
Commissioner Wostel?
Oh, I just, the last time I approved one of these thinking it was the right decision, the biggest conservationist in Hillsborough County that I know informed me that he was extremely against the decision of the board in that last large purchase, so I just didn't consent. I don't know what use of briefing is. I just wanted my ability to say no to it. I guess conservation they're not all built the same.
I'd like to move approval of the item then.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Commissioner Kemp, second, Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Owen.
Yes, and I'm not going to be supporting it either. What I've found is that, at this time, we have to make more of a focus on roads in my side of town, in East and South County. We've purchased a lot of ELAP property, which I think is great, but at the same time, it actually is interfering with the ability for us to, I think, create more roads and arteries because of the ELAP purchases. So I'm not going to be supporting this as well. Thank you.
Okay, got a motion and a second. No other comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Cameron, Cepeda, Owen, and Wostel voted no.
Future issues?
Future issues, please.
Commissioner Wostel?
I would like to direct county staff to just meet with my office to start gathering the information about the process of the purchasing of franchise utilities and the addition or removal of those franchise utilities lines in Hillsborough County. And I will have a second one now. Based on the outcome and advice of my colleagues, I believe good advice, I would like county staff to be prepared that I will be bringing forward, and we can figure out how. It looks like slightly over 100 individual items for this board to hear for consideration and analysis of whether or not they continue to belong on the county's budget heading into the fiscal year 25 budget season.
Bonnie, you got that?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Kemp?
Just to ask one question, what, just to understand, what franchise utilities, what are you looking at?
We're not, yeah.
We don't really have board discussion during future
I just
issues,
wondered
so
what
just check with the county administrator. Any other future issues? If not, we're adjourned.